Guys, what is going on? Welcome to SquareBodyTalk. My name is Dave. This is my bearded brother from another mother, Steve, from wherever he's from, Patriot tonight, Fortified. I don't know where he's from. But anyways, what is going on, guys? I hope you guys had a good week. How about you there, Steve-O? How was your week, buddy?
It was one of those weeks where maybe I will have an extra beer tonight.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to have as many tall boys as I got. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I'm rolling a little on the light stuff right now, but yeah, it's been all right. You know, it's better now that we're here, definitely for sure. So, how you guys doing?
Oh yeah, we got Bill Arrow up in the house.
Whoa.
Wills 87K5. We got AA Ron Mills up in the house. And
Nice.
I don't know if I forgot anybody else, probably. But welcome to the show, guys. So we were going to talk tonight a little bit about drinking beer. No, a little bit about maybe some like weekend projects that you could do with your Square. You know, maybe your, whatever. You know, maybe help some people out. So if you guys have any ideas, you can throw them our way, and we'll just get to talking about some stuff. So maybe that's what
What's
we'll
up,
do tonight.
Kevin? Dave, I think that's fantastic, and I actually reached out to a couple of you guys. I want to say thanks for giving me some ideas, because a lot of the times the Dave and I we definitely have, you know, some kind of an idea what we're going to talk about, but we don't always know that that's going to cover our time. And obviously you guys know that sometimes the time goes pretty long. So we don't want to just be here, you know, talking heads about nothing. So somebody forgot to plug in their internet booster. Is that bad? Is it that bad right now?
I don't know. Is everything coming along okay, guys? Can you hear everything?
So I'm going to keep going because I don't want to mess this up. But basically, you know, you guys, if you shoot me a message or Dave a message, and you know, we can talk about stuff based on what you guys give us feedback on. Like Dave over there, you know, he's just
I got square bodies all over the place. Don't work on them right now, but they're everywhere.
It's all good. Hey, me too, man. And none of them run. So yeah, it's all good. So what do you guys normally consider something you could do over a weekend? I know Dave and I have talked about this a little bit. We have our own ideas of what we really think is something that you could accomplish in a 3-day span. So it's like, you know, you get home off of work. As soon as you leave work, you go to the parts store, you get your stuff, or maybe you did it that week, you know, at lunchtime, having an extended lunch at work, which nobody would ever do. And you get all your stuff to where, you know, you're not missing anything. You know, you got all the right parts. You got Friday night to like 4 or 5 a.m. on Sunday morning. What could you possibly do? Bill says he's installed cup holders, which, you know, I think that might be a little advanced for Aaron.
I think Bill
Bill
was telling me earlier, I think it took him all weekend to install those cup holders. I'm not exactly sure in the picture how they were secure, but they look pretty badass there, Bill. And,
right on, man.
Yeah, so if you guys
shotgun mounts, that's important.
Yeah, if you guys are looking to install some cup holders, Bill Arrow is your guy. He could probably do a nice write-up on that.
Right? I need to get on that other form over there. Maybe what we'll do, glue gun.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, right. Yeah, probably.
They're just, well, don't put too much stuff in them; they'll fall off.
Right. Yeah, you got to keep it. You can't roll the tall boys like Dave here. You got to be running the shorties. I seen it the story the other day. I think it was Bud Light or Budweiser, and it was in an 8-ounce can. I thought that was really strange, and it was like small. It looked like a tomato can, like an old school tomato can.
Oh,
and I was thinking like, who does that? You know, like, is that so you could put it in your pocket and take it to your kid's PTA meeting, or, you know, not that I would do anything like that, but, you know, I mean, it's just something I was thinking about.
Yeah, maybe Coronitas only, or whatever they call those.
Coronitas?
Whatever they are. Anyway, so Kevin says that he hooked up a dual battery system in 2 days, so that'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, you know, what's funny is wiring does take longer than you usually expect it to, especially if you do it right.
Yeah.
Yeah, dual batteries are cool, man. I had, since Aaron's over here talking smack, I had a 6.2 diesel in my truck. I don't know if you knew that or not, Dave.
Jesus, you know you're wearing the 6.2 thing out.
No, I'm not. No, it's actually a badge of honor. See, Dave, you got
you
your
need
Jeeps.
some more beer, man.
You got your Jeeps. I got my 6.2 diesels. And by the way, for the record, just if anybody's actually listening, that boat anchor has sailed. There's a video, and I'll have to repost it on my Instagram of me and my buddy Jimbo. Jimbo's testing out his new winch. We were slacking rolling the winch cable in. So we literally, he came over, he grabbed the 6.2 and he put it on the trailer, and that's how we wound the winch up. It was with a dead 6.2. It was just dragging it on a couple of pieces of 2x4 up the trailer. We didn't even try and pick it up or anything. It did a job too. It was pretty sweet. But yeah, so dual batteries in that bad boy. It needed both batteries to start when it was colder if there was less than 7 glow plugs that were operational at that time. It was really pretty dismal. Yeah, it could be like 105 degrees outside, no glow plugs. It wasn't starting.
Wasn't doing it.
Oh, man. King Green.
King Green, what's up, brother?
Better not start with the J word.
That's my boy Tom. No, I think he's got I think I said he had a Suburban.
Oh, dude,
you got a Suburban cool. Right now, don't you, Tom?
Right on. Burb's the word, man. If I could have another truck, I think it would be a Burb.
So I think King Green and wait, is Bill in Oregon or Washington? I don't know. But anyways, they're up in the Pacific Northwest. Either way.
PNW. The PNW right here.
So I get this question all the time about swapping a 14 bolt in.
Yeah.
And
it's a good one.
Like into a K10. And I guess one of the things I'll make note of is that if you're doing it now you can use a 1-ton 14 bolt, but the perches are off just a little bit, so you'll have you can do it, but you might have to use some ratchet straps or some other kind of things to get stuff to fit. But you can. But if you get anything out of like a 20 K20 or whatever, then it's just going to bolt right in. I don't know about the vans though. I don't know how much different the vans are as far as the spring perches. I'd imagine they're probably about the same in those years, but somebody can correct me on that. But all you really need though is the rear end and the U joint, the adapter U joint. It's like smaller on one side and larger on the other. I don't know exactly what.
Definitely size. Not the right way to do it, Dave. Neither is ratchet straps, for God's sake. Just bind it all up
just until you bolt it on with your reused U-bolts.
My God. Hey, reusing U-bolts ain't no big thing. But my 1-ton 14 bolts, okay, here's the thing that's different. Senor Taco nailed it right on the head. 1-ton 14 bolt has narrower spring perch widths. So I can't remember exactly what it is. I know when I put this 14 bolt under my under Ethel, it actually came out of a 67 and 72. And it was like narrow by 1 inch, I think is what it was. So we had to cut the perches off and move them out. And the shock mounts are also different. They're in a totally different spot because on a square body, you got shock mounts like this, and on a round body, they're either in the front or the back. I don't remember. Anyways, cut the perches off. Buy the ones from Rough Stuff that are long. Weld the new ones on properly. Don't use ratchet straps and bind up the leaf spring.
If you want to make it work, you can. If it's just a trail rig or whatever.
Pretty much, man, that ain't going to work for a trail rig. Oh, you're crazy, Dave. Put the perches on the proper way.
Well, what I like is going to the wrecking yard and spending about $150 and getting like a 14 bolt, I don't know, either a semi floater or a full floater out of like a 90s Chevy truck. Yeah, if you got to move the perches and the shock mounts anyways, and then you have an axle that's the same width as the front.
Yeah, so one of the guys is asking about an 88. 14 bolts, I mean, all the 14 bolts will fit it, but the thing about an 88 is the perches are really far out. They're like 46 inches or 44 inches or something weird.
Yeah, so like what is it, 88 to
90, 2000?
Yeah, somewhere around there. But yeah, I used a 97 rear end, at a 4x4 97, because if you get the 2-wheel drives, they're a little bit narrower than the 4-wheel drives. So I ended up getting a 4-wheel drive 14 bolt semi floater, and then I bought new perches. I bought the perches that had like the three eye holes, so that way you could shift it a little bit if you needed to. But basically just new perches and then new shock mounts and all good, and then just had to get a different U joint and bango flango. And then I just liked the width of it. I liked it having that wider stance in the back. I just think they look nicer.
No, and I totally agree, because it gets the tires out of the wheel wells too. You don't have to use a wheel adapter, or not adapter, but a spacer. So spacing in widths and stuff. So depending on excuse me, depending on what it came out of, if it's a standard 70s 14 bolt, generally speaking, it's like I think 67 or 67 and a gosh dang it half 67 or 67 and a half inches wide. There is a van width axle. I think it is 69 or 70 or 71 inches wide, something like that. It's wide. It's quite a bit wider. And then I know you can flip hubs or something. I've heard about this. I don't remember which direction. I know like a cab chassis axle, you can put a van hub on it or something. If you go to the 14 bolt Bible, the Villa Vista, he has the how to mix and match everything to make it wider. like on Lucy, I would have liked to have had a van axle, but I realized like those are kind of hard to come by. So I'll just run a 2-inch spacer on each side.
If you guys know, if you have a dually 14 bolt, then to make
it's the narrowest, right?
Yeah,
it's
pretty narrow. Yeah, I know like the AAM 11 and a half that's in the crawler hauler, right? It's pretty dang narrow.
Yeah.
So do you have to
change?
The
hub
do you have to change
narrow,
hubs? Is that what it is?
Well, so like in our experience, we've had like 3 or 4 trucks that have. Now this is a big deal. When you buy a wheel spacer, do not buy the cheapest one on eBay. Let's just put that out there. If you gotta spend the money. Yeah, don't. And they're about $200 for a pair. But when you get a good spacer and it's all bolted up and it isn't gonna, flex out and go busting off, check it, once in a while. But once you do that, you kind of just make it whatever you need it to be. And we have been flogging them to the end of the earth, and we haven't ever had one come loose even. So, but we check our stuff once in a while. We pull the wheel off, check the.
I've seen a lot of the guys, they'll run the spacers and not like the bolt-on spacers.
Right. It's not that the lug stud doesn't go all of the way through. It's got 2 sets of bolt patterns that are offset. So you bolt the spacer to the hub, and then you bolt the wheel to the spacer, and the spacer has its own lug studs in it. But yeah, definitely.
Ben has a good idea. He said just go ahead and cross-thread the eBay ones, and good to go right there.
You could braze the aluminum to the cast iron drums, or actually probably a couple of really long self-tappers probably good.
Yeah, yeah, maybe so. Right.
But anyways, enough of that. 14 bolts, definitely something you could do in a weekend. I've done it. Spacers are for street cars. Hey, go to a desert race. You'll see all kinds of spacers. And the spacer is as strong as the wheel it's attached to. If you think otherwise, you're misinformed. I learned this lesson the hard way. I went to my buddy's shop, and he has a class A, it's a 7S truck. Or no, I'm sorry, it's just a 7. It's a stock mini truck. So it's a all-wheel independent suspension sport track. And I looked under that thing, and it was on the lift, and I was like, oh my God, it has spacers on it. And I started to think about that, and we talked about it. I was like, dude, does that ever broke off? And he's like, no. And the material that they use for the spacer is the same material they're using for the wheel. It's not good for the bearing because you change the location of where it's loading and it's loading out farther. But the thing, as long as the materials are well made and the studs are well made and it's tight, there's no way for that to come off.
Yeah, I mean, even if you're using like a stupid small backspace wheel where they're kicking way out, right. I mean, it's kind of the same thing.
I disagree, one. There's a lot of guys that use them because they can't get a wheel with the right depth or the backspacing's wrong. It just you use them if you need to. I agree. If you need a wider axle than what you can get, then fine, get the axle the right width. But if you can't get it, then just run the spacer and be done with it. Spacers are safe. Dude, I've jumped a truck 150 feet in the air, or not in the air, far lengthwise, like far and on spacers. So
the 4 9-inch broke, but the spacers survived.
There's no spacers on the 9-inch. I'm talking about on a 14-bolt truck.
Oh, there you go.
The green. If you go onto my page, there's a green K5 with a mezzanine in the rear. Mezzanine's links in the back. That has 2-inch spacers.
I mean, if you got like a billet spacer,
that's what they are.
I mean, you ain't gonna. How are you gonna break that? You know what I mean? So
right. Yeah. It's anyways. So yeah, because it's all bolted up mechanically. There's lots more. Anyways, I don't want to go into it. So, I was wanting to talk about something more specifically because there's a lot of guys still, and this includes myself. It's a Fortify off-road or Patriot chassis. Yeah,
or Weirdo Steve.
Reader, SHCOOBA_Steve. I screwed that one up. But no, Fortify Off-Road would be the one that probably has that. So check it out. Dave has never seen one of these before. And I got my Devers. Okay, so this is interesting. There's two things I wanted to show you. If you ever ask a custom leaf spring maker to make you a torque leaf, it looks like this. It's just a half a leaf. You see where the center pin is at? So what this does, guys, is this front portion adds thickness to your main leaf pack, and this will keep the wheel from twisting as much. Now, it doesn't add really any spring rate to say much. It's only half of a leaf spring, so this would just be in there for torque reasons, torque wrap. So we talked about swapping leaf springs. Now, a lot of guys use a bastard pack, is what I would call it. Right. So, what I've done is you get, some 52s and some 56s, and then you step them, right? And you have like a spring every inch as far as like how the, if you look at an off-road spring pack, which is really thin like these are usually a little bit more than 3/16 thick, and they step the springs like usually about an inch apart. If you can accomplish that and not have a ginormous leaf spring in the middle somewhere to mess it up, yeah, Bill, sure you do. You use overload springs, and it does work. You can use an overload spring for the wheel hop stuff, and actually, that's actually a great idea because it ain't twisting up. So I learned with my Blazer, because it's pre-runner, it has 13 of these. That might sound crazy, but it moves quite a bit. It's got 16 inches of travel. What I ended up doing was I realized at some point that the springs didn't have enough arch, and I wanted to mount the springs under the axle. One, to keep the wheel hop under check, and two, to keep the truck lower and have when the spring and the wheel are up in the wheel well and bottomed out on the chassis, the spring still has arch. When you put the spring on top of the axle and you bottom out the axle onto the chassis, there's negative arch usually, or it's flat. Which, if you go negative arch, you bend the spring the wrong way, that shortens the life.
Right.
You cannot get around that with a front leaf spring on a Chevy truck. Flat spring is like 3 inches of lift, period. There's really like no way around it unless you go spring under, and it's a big pain in the butt to do that. So, anyways, on my truck, I was like, hey man, I want to add some arch, right? So you got a spring, and a lot of them look like this. They don't got no arch. It's kind of sucky, and you don't have any money. Yes, you should just 4-link it, but sometimes, you know what, you don't got the money to do that, or you want to try something. And I'm kind of the guy that's like, I want to try it, see if it works. So what I ended up doing was I looked up on YouTube how they do a cold arch on a leaf spring in like a place where you go and get springs made. And they got this like arbor looking thing. It's like a little bit of a U shape and a press. Well, I got a Harbor Freight press. Coincidentally, I made a little press arbor with like a point. And you don't need this, but this will help. And basically, I would just go inch by inch, and I experimented before I did this on my main spring pack, and I started to press until I started seeing like a little bit of a kink here. So I would go 3/8. So I was like, okay, well, they're not pressing them very far to get arch, right? So I went 3/8, and it left a little bit of you could tell that had been bent right there. So I was like, okay, well, maybe I'll go just a little bit. So I flipped the spring over and I pushed it back the other direction, 3/8, and it flattened it out. I was like, okay, well, there's a little trick to this, right? It's not so straightforward, especially in the garage. I went 2/8, and that would put arch in the spring without kinking it in that spot. And, it's interesting because I was counting how many pumps that was, and I think it was like 6 pumps on mine, and I literally just had the 2 crossbars from the I-beam that they put in there, and I just put that press down in there, and I'd go 7 pumps, and I'd back off, and I'd move it to the next mark and go 7 inches and back off. And what I learned was it is crazy how fast you can put a bunch of arch in this spring. You see how many marks I got there? There's only like 5 of them. If I just arch from here to here, 2/8, this spring would be 3 inches more of total arch in it. It's crazy.
That's pretty awesome. I'm surprised you didn't do like 6 pumps and then fall asleep.
Well, usually it's like 2.5, and then I'm done. But
Oh, gotcha.
I got a second wind and a third wind, so we're doing really good right now. So what ends up happening is there's a trick to this, and I didn't realize that until after I did the first spring. So I was like, oh, I'm going to add a bunch of arch. I'm going to make it like those Link Killer Springs giant cells. So I just went the whole spring. Dude, I had 22 inches of arch because my springs are 65 and 5/8 total on the long spring. Well, that ain't going to work. And what I learned was where the arch is at compared to the eye, front and back, makes a big old difference in how this thing, like if you put a bunch of arch in the front, that means the center pin is going to be more forward. But if you put a bunch of arch in the back, it has nothing to do with the front portion. And this is kind of like a four-link. This part right here, from the eye to the center pin, is like your front link arm, and the back portion is what is the total travel, like the total amount of arch you have in the spring determines approximately how much the spring can go up and down. You're trying to not go past negative if you can avoid it. You cannot avoid this on the front, so this is going to wreck springs. It's the way it goes. But what I ended up learning was I put my stuff, kind of all the arch in the back of the spring, and it's pretty steep, and it works great. And I figured it this way: if it lasts me for a season and I got to go back in, say for example I'm still running leaf springs, I got to go back in and re-arch them again. Who cares? I did it for free, and that's the thing about this, man. It's like you can do that, and you can experiment with how many springs you got, how thick they are. There's like I use Ford F-150 or Ford Ranger leaf springs. They're 56 and 52 inches long. Each depends on which ones you get them from.
Yeah.
They're really soft. Did you know that a stock Ford F-150 spring has like 13 or 14 inches of arch? Adam Dooling on CK5, he's running an F-150 spring. He bought them from I think it was J.C. Whitney or something like that, and he runs them on the back of his K5.
Well, what are F-150s? What, they're like 60 inches, aren't they? They're long, aren't they?
Yeah, I think so. But it works good on his truck. I did that on the front. And you guys are saying blasphemy and all this other stuff.
Well, Juan is asking, so you've done that to your springs. That Are they on, what are they on now?
On mine?
Are they on your truck now, the Blazer?
My K5 has springs that I re-arched.
So Juan was asking, how long do they last? Like, did you notice, I mean, you've only driven it like 2 miles in the last couple of years, but.
No, dude, like I actually drove it for 6 days at King of the Hammers, and I've jumped it probably 300 times. I mean, that truck has absolutely been just completely abused. Fords are going to be like OBS Fords, mid-90s, late 90s stuff, square kind of ish looking Fords. So none of the round stuff, and especially the Rangers are the. So I found out that the springs on the F-150, you kind of hack. You actually should buy 2 pairs of those springs if you can, because you got to double them up because they're so soft. I mean, especially I'm talking about for the front. So like say you're trying to make something, because this is my idea, right? Because like on Ethel, I have 6-inch super lift springs, and there's only 2 leaves in the whole pack, or 3 leaves in the whole pack, because I only wanted like 3 inches of lift. But I didn't want to have all these springs, and like with the standard lift spring, the spring rates are crazy. So broke right now, just like everybody is. And I was thinking, you know what? I got a half of a pack of Devers in the backyard, and I had put those Devers in their complete state because they're for a Jeep speed on the front of Ethel. Like Ethel actually has a set of leaf spring holes with a bushing in them on the frame for a long travel Dever. Like that probably surprises people, but it did. Because I was like trying to make it ride nice, and it didn't work because the springs with the diesel just flattened out. So I was like, well, I'll run like one of the main springs from that super lift pack, and then I'll put another little stiff spring kind of like halfway through, and then stack up the Devers, and I'll go through with my dang angle grinder and cut them to the length and stepping that I want. So you figure the longer the spring is, and if it has some decent arch, total arch would be something about, whatever your shocks are. So like that truck has like 8-9-inch shocks. So I would look at where negative arch is with a bump stop, and okay, how far can I actually go down? So then I'll measure that, figure out, okay, well, I need for my shocks to be, fully used, like vertical travel, not articulation. and I want to sit halfway in there, right? So I look and be like, okay, well, I need it to sit with like 3 inches of arch, and then I need it to extend when I jack the truck up on its own, the 6 inches that it's got left. Because the reason why a truck ride's nice is because the wheel goes into the hole and the truck doesn't. It's isolating the body and the rest of the truck from the bump. And that's like a hole or a bump going both directions. So you want to have some up travel, you want to have some down travel. I usually try to split it halfway. But that's basically what I would do is I'd put the truck up on a jack stand in the front, and I'd build the springs, and that would be a droop, and then I'd put everything together and I'd set it down to see where it sits. And if it sits too high, because when you start to add all this arch in there, you're gonna make the truck sit taller. You're not adding spring rate, but you are adding arch, and that's a byproduct of that. So you're trying to set it up in such a way that it just sits where you want it to, but it's not like so soft that it just blows through all the travel. You want to have a little bit of tension there. So there's a little bit of a trick. I don't know what it is exactly on how to set that all up, but if you look at some of the off-road race trucks on the internet, you can see how the springs are, and you just try and copy that, and it ain't rocket science. It's like experimentation. Say you only got 52s and that's all you have. Well, you can take some springs from the back and cut them in half and use them and step them, the same way and just see what happens. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. There's other things you could do too is like on some of the real heavy duty off-road, like a dump truck or something like that. They have these things called parabolic springs, and they have a weird taper. But I've also seen guys put like a spacer, so you have like your ride height area, you got a little bit of a spacer in between your springs, like maybe it's a half an inch, and then you've got the rest of your springs, so your springs ride in their main ride zone until it touches the second portion of the pack. Some of the Chevys have like a heavy duty version of this. You got extra
the bottom, well, I guess that's the overload spring, I guess, but yeah.
Well, it's kind of the same, but it's on top, but there's like these perches that it starts to push on so that it doesn't bottom out.
The heavy duty trucks.
Yeah.
It's almost like that overload. It's like a separate overload pack up top, basically.
Right.
Yeah. So somebody had a question here. Let's see. So Kevin said, what hardware do you use to put your leaves together? Do you use like grade 8 or you get a grade 9 bolt or what?
So I actually, Napa where I'm at has leaf spring, quite literal leaf spring center pin bolts. So I've used grade 8. You take them and you just turn the head down, and that's worked fine. Personally, I like a grade 8 with a shank, but the problem is if the shank is not going to fit the hole, you are going to burn up some carbide bits. I mean, it will absolutely destroy drill bits like it's going out of business. The leaf spring steel is so hard, you'll just fry them. And if you're going to cut through leaf spring steel, you got to go slow. You got to use oil, and if it starts to squeal, you need to lube it up because it'll break the bit, dude. And if it breaks the bit in there and it's a hardened bit, it's kind of a bad day. Yeah,
I broke a couple of those trying to get some header bolts out a couple times. Or you break the easy out.
Yeah. Marco, hey Mark, what's up, brother? Mark is he's in Colorado. He's one of my buddies from CK5.
Awesome. But, hey, for all you guys that just came in here recently, good to see you guys. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, so we're talking about leaf springs. And these guys, a lot of these guys are crawlers, so they have way more experience with this stuff than I do. I'm just saying that, the leaf spring thing, it definitely could be made to work properly, especially if you got, some time and you just don't have no money. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, the spring pack down. Let's see. So this spring pack here it's their 56s out of a half-ton burb. I don't know what year it was. It was in the wrecking yard. And so I think I ended up taking, I think I took like one leaf out of it, and it kind of gave me the ride. And I used it on the K10 when I was crawling, and it gave me really good flex. So I'm not sure how it's going to do on this truck. Once I get the bed on and everything, I'll get to see. I'll probably need to probably add that leaf back in there or another one, but they're probably going to be pretty soft, I'd imagine.
Well, and then that's kind of the problem too. A lot of guys will put a spring pack in the back and it's soft like what you're talking about, and it's just absolutely worthless for holding wheel hop.
Yeah.
So, there's two ways to deal with that: is thicker spring pack, like Deaver does with big, huge springs, which doesn't really always completely eliminate the wheel hop, as I have found out on mine. So maybe we could do a video on that, Dave, as far as getting you a wheel hop, like a torque arm kind of thing that like ORD sells one. I know DIY's got one. Maybe I'm trying to think. The torque arm on a Camaro, very similar to that, except it's on a shackle, so that when the differential starts to rotate up, it pulls on that shackle that's pointed upward, and then the arm does the
the crappy thing about those torque arms, because since I've owned like 4 of those Camaros, they used to, on the older ones, so it had the T5, and even I think on the auto that they put in there, but so it would have the bottom 2 bolts that went through the trans, and then it was like a bushing that had like the clamshell around it. But actually, like on the first years they were doing it, like it was just 1 bolt that like went into the transmission. So it didn't, like on the later models, there was a bolt that went all the way through, like a nut and a bolt style. But like on my older Camaros, it would just like rip that bolt out of the transmission all the time. It sucked.
Oh, that sucks. Yeah, that's not good. And it's probably a little bit of an oversight on their part, but they probably didn't understand how high a horsepower the 305, they just... No, it's so funny. Okay, so if you want to know about Camaros and you want to know about how to make a stock Camaro fast, you talk to Mark. Mark is the man when it comes to anything Camaro. Like, he knows pretty much everything there is to know about them, because he used to race, I don't know if it's bracket racing, and say in here, Mark, what it was, but he was doing like competitive racing. He had a license for NHRA. And I knew he was, man, I can't remember what it was, Mark. You just got to tune in here. It's cool. When you talk to Mark about it, like, you could tell he had some fun.
All right, Mark, what years have you had? And
he's had all the years you haven't had, 68.
Robert Kraft's up in the house.
Camaros. He did some bad Camaros. Oleg is talking about, I'm trying not to do a shackle flip. I want the shackle pointed up and longer shackles to custom mount. Okay, let's talk about this for a second. Super stock and stock eliminator. Man, Mark, maybe we need to have him on at some point. I know it's super late where he's at too, but because we want to talk. Camaros are cool. I love Camaros. So
is he a small block guy? Mark a small block guy? Big block guy?
Mark is a small block guy. Yeah, Mark's all about 383s, or he's got a 383. He's got a ZZ4 or ZZ6 crate motor with a Edelbrock EFI, and it's got an SM465. And Leafs and big boy tires, and yeah, it's cool. You need to go on CK5, because then you can see all this cool stuff.
Yeah.
But you don't want to pay the money, and you're just a Jew, and that's what I am, so we say that. Anyways, Ulex, okay, so we're talking about tension and compression shackles. Okay. Some of this is my opinion. Some of this I know works, and I have checked this on my own, so Dave, go point back at your leaf spring shackle.
Here, let me
on the back of the truck.
Let me get a little more cable, and I will put the camera over by it. Let's see here. All right.
All right, guys. You see how that shackle's pointed all the way back? Unfortunately for Dave, that is wrong. And the reason why is when you compress that spring all the way to flat, there's no room left for that shackle to swing, and it will bind up that leaf spring. Yeah, right, Dave. And the reason why is you want to make sure that the shackle is long enough to accommodate the growth and how much the spring is going to expand and contract. Now, typically what you would do is this would be set up on a normal dirt truck to be at 90 degrees to the leaf spring when it's fully compressed. If you have added angle like this at right height, this actually is stiffening the rate because it's trying to pull both of the eyes together. So in Dave's case, if you wanted it to ride better, he would move that shackle pivot rearward just a little bit. Uh-oh. Did we die, Dave?
I don't think so.
It said it just went off.
Did it?
On mine, yeah.
That's all good.
Okay. Maybe my phone just took a crap. So you would move that to the rear just a little bit so that when the spring is uncompressed and totally drooped out, you want to limit the travel so that that shackle doesn't flip forward and and basically flip the wrong direction, and now you have bad problems. So
Well, see, I like it. Well, I don't necessarily like it like that. Like without moving the hanger,
mhm,
what I probably would end up doing is putting maybe like a longer shackle on there. But
it would
I
make your
want
problem worse.
I want to keep it from flopping forward, like you said.
Yeah. Well, limit straps will do that, or a shock that if you're not going really fast, the shock can be the limiter, which is not usually good. But in this case, for what you're doing, Dave, it would be interesting to try that, drilling extra holes and moving it back. The same thing goes for the front. When you look at a truck from the factory, the spring eye and the shackle, there's a diagram around here somewhere on Google or something. It talks about with the rate stiffening and softening. So there definitely is a right way to do this. On my truck, I drilled a bunch of holes in a piece of plate, or actually punched holes with an iron worker in a piece of plate, and I moved the spring pivot and the shackle pivot forward and backward. Excuse me. Just because I wanted to see if that diagram was BS. Maybe it's the live chat, Dave.
I think you're BS. There, everybody's here. They can see you. Can you guys see Steve's ugly mug?
Oh,
Hashtag
yeah,
yes.
My phone tripped out.
So
Okay,
you know what? I'm surprised I haven't lost you yet. Usually,
Hey, don't jinx it, Dave.
Usually, it cut out by
Don't
now.
jinx it. I'm getting to Ulig's question. So, Ulig, when you flip the shackle the other direction, you allow yourself to have more arch for the same height. So in your case, Dave, if we were to take your springs, put them in the press, now there's a bunch of variables that we're throwing out the window right now. So say, for example, the springs were soft, and they were still soft after we did all this, and you were able to keep your spring length the way it is and not have it be, creating pinion problems and whatnot. Yeah, he said its feet is slow. Oh, it sucked.
Video good, feed is slow. Maybe the chat's slow. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? But basically, what you would accomplish would be allowing yourself more compression travel, and it should technically ride better with more arch because you have more. The spring is able to extend and compress, and it's allowed to grow, and the shackle's not doing something to add tension to that. When you have a shackle that's straight up and down, and the spring is extending, the shackle's going to want to go like this, or you want it to go basically to 90 degrees. Because the reason why you do that is to eliminate the shackle as part of the spring rate. Now, if you look on a stock truck at ride height, the shackle is a little forward. The reason why they're doing that is to add a little bit more spring rate for weight capacity, because these trucks are made to be trucks, right? They're not made to go off-road. There's a 10-second delay, chat feed. There's 15 seconds, isn't it, Dave?
Yeah, something like that.
It's like 15 seconds. So it says that I'm slow. That's not good. Hold on a second here.
Yeah, well, we all know.
Go talk, Dave, real quick. I'm going to check something.
What's up, guys? Oh, man, I hope you guys had a good week. So tomorrow's my Friday, because this weekend I got my marathon for my 4x4 club, so that's going to be awesome. All day Saturday. 5 trails, 18 hours. It's going to be awesome.
Dude, that is some serious wheelinage. Yeah, good speed over here. I don't know what you guys are talking about. It's probably Dave, because I got 19 megs down and 2 megs up. It should be plenty.
Yeah, it's probably
Anyways,
some of the. So it could be some of their internet connection too.
Maybe their high desert internet.
Could be.
So anyways, what's up, James? Steve is slow. I'm always slow. So anyways, the point is, and I could drone on about this for hours because of suspension, and everybody knows I like talking about suspension. There's a correct way to do it. If you set up your springs so that the spring, when it's flat, the shackle's 90 degrees. It doesn't matter if the shackle's pointed up or if it's pointed down. When it's bumped out, 90 degrees. That's a pretty good rule of thumb. It's really simple. Serious.
This guy's talking all kinds of trash up in here.
It's Dave's vape.
Dude, where's Zubat at tonight?
I know. I was hoping Ron would be here. He's probably
frickin'
working or something.
Bags the crap out of me. So interestingly enough, so I'm going to pull this up real quick. So
Internet
Robert
speed.
Kraft, he sent me and he said Arctic Blaze 2.0. So let me find the message so I can show you, which would actually be a pretty good deal if anybody lives close to it. So let me
Where's he
see
live at?
here. I don't know where old Bobster's at. Can't remember, but let me find this sucker. Let me find it.
It was Robert?
Yeah, here we go.
Uh,
Pull it up right now.
Hurry up, Dave.
I'm coming here.
Come on, Dave. OMG. Can't see it. It's still blurry.
It'll zoom.
Dude, $750?
I know. I thought he said he was going to
Wow.
buy it for me, but I don't think he's going to. All right, let me see here. See if we can go to the picture. So there's the back. Yeah. Oh, I lost Steve. We always lose Steve somewhere in the middle. But I'm going to show you guys this Blazer anyways. Where's it at here? Let me see where it's at. Where's it at, Bill? Or Bob? Did you put that up here? Let's see. It's in Republic, Washington, I think it says. Anyways, I think it's on Craigslist. So get your hands on it, guys. Does it look? It actually, it look like the outside looks like it's in pretty decent shape. I'm sure it's got some rust as always, but it's all good. Oh, you said it's up in Washington somewhere. Is that because you bought it and you don't want these guys to go check it out? You got a deal working? All right, let me see if I can get Steve back on, and then I will, let's see, I'll get to James' question here. 1 second here. I know, I feel you, Mark. Nothing like an old Blazer to go busting it up. So James Griffin, I've got a question for a Blazer with a Turbo 400, 205, 10 bolt, 4-inch shackle flip with the drive shaft. Let's see. Will the drive shaft have a bad time? Let's see. 400, 205, 10 bolt, 4-inch. Probably not. I don't see why. I wouldn't see it having too much problems. I guess if you did maybe have a problem, maybe but I mean it's a shackle flips. The axle of the pinion should be in a pretty good position, so I don't see why you'd have much of an issue with that. All right, let's see here. All right, I'm gonna see if I can get Steve back here. It's his high desert Wi-Fi that's always causing us some problems. So let me try to call him back here. Unless his old lady just turned it off and made him come to bed. Maybe that could have happened. Yeah, I keep seeing that roadkill. They posted that. It was like that baby blue K5. I'm curious what they're going to be doing with that. All right. I don't know. I think Steve might be done. Oh, here he comes. Did you make it back? What happened? We're just talking about it, and you freaking went offline.
Yeah, just don't even. You guys jinxed me.
What? Moved the wrong thing.
Can't believe it.
Yeah. I think everybody like cheered when you left, so it was all good.
Probably did.
They're like, "Yay, Steve's gone."
Not talking anymore about stupid stuff we don't care about.
No.
Hey guys, I'm back. So you will never guess what happened, Dave.
Your old lady killed the Wi-Fi, and I don't know what else happened.
So the internet died, right? And then I call, and I'm like, "Hello, I want to find out what is wrong with my internet service." And they're like, "Well, what's your name, sir?" And I was like, "My name is Stephanie Reed." And they just had a really hard time, so we got disconnected, and then my internet just started working magically.
Nice.
It's amazing. It was
Good
amazing.
job,
I was
buddy.
happy about that. So what did I miss? What happened, Dave? Did you talk about your Jeep?
No, I did not talk about my Jeep.
You didn't
Bit77
talk about
says
Jeep,
Steve's ear is ugly. I don't know what he's doing looking at your ear. Robert Kraft said I let out a loud fart, so he's probably giggling to himself wherever he's at because I always laugh at my own farts. Yeah, so somebody had a question here, and I didn't think he would have an issue, but I'm going to go back to it. And you can tell me what you think there, Steve-O. Oh, dude, come on, man. All right. I do the same thing. Oh, C72C's up in the house.
Whoa, whoa.
He's no
Wait.
surprise. He says no surprise. Goldie looks the same. She does, and she's not getting sun faded. She's just chilling in the garage. It's all good.
Up. You're Dutched up. Nice.
He was probably laying in bed, like pulled the blanket up over himself.
Way to go, man. That's good stuff right there.
Yeah.
So, oh, what did I miss?
Now, James said, I've got a question for a Blazer with a TH400, 205, 10 bolt, and 4-inch shackle flip. Will the drive shaft have a bad time? And I said no, because that's pretty much the setup I was running. I mean, I was running it in the 10, and I shortened it, and I never had any issues. I think the only problem is when you have an SM465, that front drive shaft. When I had in the K10 with the 4-inch lift, I should have probably clearanced that. What is it, the cardan joint, or what do they call that? But
cardan, double.
But
it's single or double cardan.
It ate itself up.
Yeah,
cardan, potato.
So those things are interesting. What's up, honey? My wife's naked. Just so anybody's wondering. No, you can't see. It's good though. It's really good. What? Hi, bye, honey. Sorry about that. Got a something happened. So Mark was talking about his comment on the CV drive shaft was based on wiping the bearing out on the 205 due to the vibrations caused by angles. You know, it's kind of funny. I actually think my driveline on Ethel, the vibrations I think are wasting the bearings in my 241, dude. And I've been like, it's getting progressively worse.
I mean, you could waste a bearing in a 205, but those bearings are pretty damn.
Yeah, I mean, I know Marky Mark's definitely not a noob when it comes to any of this stuff.
There he is.
What?
Zold freaking Zoomad. I was just talking about you, man. I was like, where are you at to give me some crap?
Oh, he was enjoying. Did you see he bought a new Blazer?
Who did? Oh, we lost him again. Hey, dude, this guy can't keep his internet going here. I don't know what he's doing. Anyways, I think his old lady keeps cutting him off. All right, so who got a new Blazer? Was that you, Zoomad75? Did you get a new Blazer? My truck has a vibration at 75 plus or minus 3 miles an hour. Yeah. I don't know what it was, man. I had a serious vibration in my Blazer that I don't know. I think it was ultimately like the old tires I was running, and then it finally went away, but oh well. If you can just avoid that that sweet spot, you'll be all right. All right, let's see if we can get Steve back again. Hold on. This guy's killing me. Give me a sec. Let's try to call him. Oh, you guys lost me too. Look at that. Oh, Zoomad. Oh, yeah. You know, that's crazy. So I seen those Zoomad, those new Blazers. I had seen the concept. I remember everybody was posting about it, like on Instagram, saying it was like the ugliest thing ever. Yeah, I think they should have just like kept it a Trailblazer and not a regular Blazer, because those things are like so ugly. So basically, what it is, and it's like all these 4-door kind of deals. They're all just freaking eggs. They just look like an egg. So, I don't know. I don't dig it. I don't dig it very much at all. Steve-O, did we get you back? Hello, Steve-O. Try to call him again here. See if it'll work. What about VSS N241? I don't know. I think it does. I think it's got to get. It's the 241C, right? The one that they used in like late or early 90s that has the passenger drop?
Dave,
Steve,
what's going on?
what is going on?
I don't know, dude. Freaking bean pile. That's what happened.
All right, so somebody has a question here, Steve. Maybe you can answer it before you get cut off again.
What's that?
So, do K10s with dual gas tanks have an electric fuel pump to switch them from one side to the other?
What year? Yes, but it depends on what year it is. If it's older, my 72 had a switch on the left side of the floor to switch the tanks because it had one inside the truck and then it had one on the left side. But I don't know if that's a standard thing because it was a camper special. But my K20 has one, but it's a switch valve. Actually, I have one. Hold on a second.
Yeah, but doesn't I think so on my 84? I think how it worked was there's a pump in each tank, right? Yeah, a pump in each tank.
So
And then when you flip the switch, I think it just sends the signal to the one tank, doesn't it?
So it has a dual sending unit. So there's one on one side, one on the other. So if you have a dual tank, you're going to probably want to carry one of these just in case. This is from an 80s truck. And there's other versions of this. There's like a Pep Boys version with a solenoid and some other stuff. But this truck switches the return and the feed. So you got your feeds here. Feed, return. Going up to the motor, whatever it happens to be, fuel injection, diesel, whatever. This is the one Jimbo gave me, so I don't know what it came off of. And then you got both tanks. So this thing's going to be mounted up underneath the body, and you'll have a line from each side. You got some coming across the cross member and in, and then this will switch between the two. What you'll hear is kind of like a buzz, and it will be switched over. But when you push the button, you got to hold the button down until it stops making noise, or actually switches over.
That setup right there.
I agree with that.
K5
The rear tank thing,
except with the
just
pistons
get rid of it, man. The pistons. Hey, what are those turbo racing pistons, Dave?
They got the pluses on them. So
dude,
that
that's
means
actually
that they're
like
extra
more
strong.
horsepower.
Oh yeah.
Pluses for extra.
Yeah,
like those are 500 horsepower,
extra
600
stuff on.
horsepower.
Yeah, they're 3/4 race pistons is what they are,
Oh,
Steve.
man.
And
I
you
mean,
put
I
that with the
understand-
3/4 race cam and the LS,
Right.
and
Oh man,
you break 10 bolts.
I've heard
break
of
10
guys-
bolts and then Camaros right there,
Oh
buddy.
man, just all of them with the 28-inch slicks. You know, I heard some stories about guys that went to 7/8 race cams and 7/8 race motors. I mean, those are nasty.
Man, I heard a couple guys
Can't
going
imagine.
to the 7/8. I heard a couple guys going to the 5/16 race
Wow.
cams.
Amazing.
Yeah, that's
Right.
pretty nuts.
But 3/4, man, like that's as much as I can handle. 3/4 race cam. Definitely. That's like 3 steps above an RV cam.
Yeah.
You got an RV cam in that thing,
What's
Dave?
you live talking about Jeep guys? What's going on here?
Oh man, I can't see this chat here. Let me go back in here and see if I can.
Somebody
refresh
who's talking about Jeeps here.
Dave, you're not
What?
allowed to say that word anymore. So what we got
I
here?
love my Jeep.
Let's see here. Blazer tank for the win. Next question. Summit's so stingy with stickers, Jags. I don't know, man. They sending them all to me. I got probably like 300 Summit stickers. Which stage cam is 3/4? I don't know what you're talking about, dude. There's no such thing as a 3/4. It's 3/4.
Yeah, if you just have like the 360 cam, everything just doesn't do anything, right?
Oh man, what's up, Rob? No. Unfortunately, no. That's not going to happen. So yeah, you got to get those camel hump heads. Okay, so this is funny. You know that green truck we work on, that's long bed with the 3-link. It actually has a 3900010 4-bolt main block, camel hump heads, Edelbrock Performer RPM intake, MSD ignition, and an Edelbrock carburetor. It actually runs really good. It's broken the case on 3 Turbo 350s, not because it was too powerful, because the brackets and some of the bushings and stuff were whacked out and had a broken flex plate and a bunch of other stuff. But it's got all the hot rod parts and it actually runs really good.
Hey, speaking of weekend projects, right? So we were talking about small blocks earlier.
Oh yeah.
So you guys in the chat, if you had a weekend to do, let's say, kind of a budget mod to your stock small block,
Nitrous.
what would it be and why?
150 shot of nitrous. And why?
Right.
Because why not? Because you want to beat all the Camaros with your pickup truck.
Hey, NOS is never a bad idea, I don't
I've
think.
never done it. Hey, C72, you just don't know how to say 3/4. What are you checking about, huh, Chris? I told you. I freaking told you, Chris.
Settle down, Chris.
I didn't know you could do that. Oh, man. So,
Always sniper. Well, okay, so we're talking like budget friendly. I'm not sure
Right.
if
we're not trying to mortgage our house.
Holly
to fuel injection
EFI
here.
is
I
that.
mean, come on. What do
If
you
you're
think
doing
this
Holly EFI, you might as well just do LS.
is? You know what EFI stands for? Edelbrock fuel injection. That's what it stands for.
It's like you learn something new every day, right?
No, I'm just kidding. It doesn't stand for that, Dave.
Yeah.
Equalized fuel injection. No, it stands for ethanol fuel induction. We're changing this. We're changing the world here, people. Welcome to SquareBodyTalk, where you learn new terms.
Yeah.
Ethanol fuel induction. That means E85 for the win.
Photo win.
Swap it for an 8.1 on the weekend. I don't know, man.
I think my buddy at work, my heavy line tech guy, he's picking up an 8.1 and a 4L80 for a pretty good price. So I think he's gonna put that in his K5. So
Heck
it's gonna be awesome.
Dude, that should be pretty awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Be way more
Heads
awesome.
cam.
If you put some purple
Okay,
on.
so ULIG, right? So if you had a small block and you were going super budget, like I'm talking super budget. Okay, let's say you had just a stock, like what, 8.5 to 1 compression, 350, and you wanted to soup it up a little bit. What cam heads would you use?
Okay, what's the budget?
I don't know.
$2,000? Can I spend $2,000?
$2,000, you might as well go LS. Why are you gonna spend $2,000 on a small block?
Because then it would be more horsepower than an LS has that.
No, it wouldn't. Yeah, not
Yes,
really.
it would. Yeah, it would.
Would
Dave.
not. Steve,
Dave would.
Steve, you're talking out of your ass again.
No. Okay, wait a
You're
second.
giving these guys
I
false
got like
hope.
3 guys in here right now that will tell you that
You're
you're
giving
wrong.
these guys
Everybody
false
that's
hope.
in here that knows I'm telling the truth.
Bro, I did
Just
small
tell me
block
wrong.
stuff before I did LS stuff, and I got to tell you, I don't know.
Dave, listen. 59cc heads. You call Summit. You buy the cheapest aluminum heads you could possibly buy. You put, I don't know. I actually had really good luck with the 4-wheel drive cam, the XE262H. That ran really good. It ran about as good as my small block does, coincidentally. Excuse me, my LS. But it had more torque. And that had crappy smog heads on it. So I can only imagine with aluminum. I mean, the aluminum heads on a small block will change everything. Absolutely puts it in the same realm as especially if you can get the flow up.
But you got to spend. Okay, so let's say you get some heads for cheap, but it's like heads are usually expensive, but heads definitely make the best.
Well, it's your induction. So
difference.
I've been told on a stock small block, you could pick up 150 horsepower by putting the right cam, the heads, and the intake on there. We already know pretty much the best flowing intake out of the box is an RPM air gap. That's a pretty generic answer to most questions. A Hawley or an Edelbrock tuned properly on top of an RPM air gap or an RPM performer. You stick it to some aluminum heads based on cubic inches and airflow that you're trying. You know, if you're spinning it to $7,000, you're going to need a bigger port with a 400. If you're spinning it, 350 to 4,500, you want a smaller port. 170cc to 185 maybe, right? And Eddie's over here. He's all talking about 383s and stuff. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff you can do to them. That there is a reason why it's still, even though the LS exists, it's a reason why that is the most popular hot rod engine on the planet.
Here's my formula for a small block. You ready? You just had a 350, crapo carb 350, and you lived in a place where you didn't have to do the small stuff. Anyway, so headers, right? Headers, 305 heads.
What?
Right? And an RV cam.
What's an RV cam, Dave?
Everybody knows what an RV cam is. Or a 30-30 cam. You could do that if you wanted a little upper.
30-30 cam,
30-30 cam, put in...
Small valves?
What?
Which valves? 172, 150. What kind of valves are you going to put in it? 202, 160s.
Leave it alone.
Well, I mean, because there's a couple versions of that head, right? I would think that you could probably
Just the cheapest ones you can find.
194. I mean, that's a bunch of compression with not very much flow and a crappy cam from the 50s. Why are you doing that to yourself, Dave?
Because it's cheap.
It sounds like
I said
small
cheap.
block that doesn't run. There's plenty of other.
If you want to spend money on a small block,
no,
get an LS.
you don't got to spend money. You don't need the roller rockers. You run the standard stamp rockers. You can get those higher ratio, and you can slot them farther with your hand. Good push rods. You could do, there you go, 377 with stock parts. Dude, like, there's lots of power left. Easy. There's so much there, it's ridiculous. Okay, so for a weekend,
mechanical advanced distributor.
Yes,
set your weights up.
Okay, so you're right.
Get your quadrijet. Make sure you have a dual plane intake.
Yes.
Bango flango.
Okay, the biggest things that helped mine, because mine started out life, if you didn't know this, pretty stock, with an RV cam. I put Holly on it, which wasn't the best for crawling. I'll tell you right now, that doesn't work. So if you get a good quadrijet and you know how to tune it, or Jet makes one, I think Edelbrock used to make a Performer Q-Jet, which actually they run pretty good. You just got to make sure you know how to tune it. There's a book out there. Buy the book if you're going to run a Q-Jet. Q-Jets are dang good carburetors if you can make them work. 268H is a good kind of stepping stone cam. Not a bunch of overlap. It's actually smog legal, which, and it makes more power than a stock cam. I think they're 218 by 218. It's been a long time since I looked that cam up.
Shit, now, like somebody was saying Vortec heads.
Yeah, 906s are about 30. So for stock heads, best heads you could put on it, it's 30 horsepower over a standard small block, even a camel hump.
Yeah, the
Good
Vortec heads work. Now, what's the deal though with they have like offset, like there's something with like the studs or something in there.
Yeah,
isn't there?
Instead of being at an angle, the middle bowl holes are vertical. So there is actually a couple places of online you can get a manifold that has a spacer for that bolt hole. And I don't remember who's making it. I swear I saw somewhere where somebody's making a Vortec casting that works with the standard intake manifold. So that's going to require some research. But this is the thing. If you say RV cam, Dave, because I know you work at an RV place, RV cams.
I'm not saying that.
Okay, so if anybody's wondering, RV cams are literally designed to run at a certain speed, and they're not designed to make power. Do not put an RV cam in your engine unless you want it to run like crap.
Yeah, but so I think we're
talking loader.
But we're getting off the point, though. Like the point is, you want to do inexpensive mod to your engine, because like if you're doing high RPM stuff, like you're gonna be spending a dick load of money. Like a small block, like if you can get, like when I say an RV cam, like the comp cams has them, and it's basically like a 500 to like 3,500 or $4,000. Man, maybe they'll pull the $4,000, some of them, but like that's it really on a like just a regular crappy old small block without spending a bunch of money. Like that's really all you're gonna get.
So you can do what you're talking about doing without putting a literal RV cam in it. So there's a duration range. Stay under 220 degrees at 50 thousandths of cam timing because you're not spinning the thing over $5,000. I would say, in my opinion, if you don't have a small block that can pull from idle all the way to the red line, you're doing something wrong. There's no reason why it shouldn't work all the way. So the cam I was talking about in my truck, right? I spent a little bit of extra money and I bought the cam kit. And it was the springs, the retainers, the seals, and the camshaft and lifters, flat tappet. Yeah, there you go. See, this guy knows what's up. But it worked with, I had
buy an XJ.
I had 882 heads on that thing, and it didn't hit anything. I used stock rockers, and that thing made good power and good torque. And I had no problems with idle or anything like that. It still made like 16 inches of vacuum. Spend the money on a good camshaft, because that part by itself is responsible for darn near everything that the engine, it's the breathing, it's the thing that tells it how to pump the air. there are good cams that are like Melling or Summit or whoever, but do some research. Yeah, rock crawler guys don't care about RPM until they need wheel speed, and then they do. But there's no reason why you should have a small block hampered by 190 degree, 320 thousandths lift camshaft. There's no reason why. You should be able to put something in there with 210, 218. That four-wheel drive cam I was talking about, that's their middle range one. It's 218 by 226. It's 462 intake lift, 480 on the exhaust. It's on a 111 LSA. Very mild cam. It sounds good. It idles fine. You get I put a 2200 stall converter in it. The thing was happy, man. And that thing would run all the way to 5500. It wouldn't float the valves. That was probably one of the best running small blocks I ever had. And it would crawl. It would tow. You could rev it out. It was, like, in my opinion, like, that's as good as it got with the dog crap smog heads on there. And it made 238 horsepower at the tire and 289 pound-foot of torque through turbo 350 with nobody knows how many miles, an MP205 and an Eaton HO72 with 33-inch tires. That was at the ground. So you do the math. What's 30%? That was like 300 horsepower, I think, and 350 foot-pounds of torque. That's pretty good for a small block with iron heads and 9-to-1 compression. I'm happy with that. If you think about like an LS, I mean, what are they putting down? It's 5.3s are putting down what, 260 horse somewhere in there to the ground.
I don't know.
And that's
you
probably
get a
you can get 300. You could get 300 with bolt-ons out of a 5.3. So I don't think that's really bad. Like, it would blow the tires off in first and second gear on pavement and it had a Detroit locker and everything. So people saying small blocks ain't nothing, they're wrong. You can absolutely make it work, and it takes a little bit of knowledge because carburetors are, extinct now. But yeah, the smog, okay, zoom ads right here talking about L79 327 cam, 488, good lift, torque, idle 5500, nice low but on idle too. Yeah, so I'd be interested to see what the 1103 214 by 224. So yeah, there's a bunch of stuff right here. CS 258 HR with 1.6 rockers. There's a bunch of good information. See, we went into the weeds, Dave, and look what happened.
Oh, yeah.
Grumpy saying, I'm building a turbo small block relatively cheap compared. Here's the other thing, too. A lot of people probably don't realize this. You can put a small turbo on one of these, and it'll make a Cummins kind of be like, oh, man, what's going on over here? There is an interesting thing that I learned when I was working on Volkswagens. A lot of these guys will put the factory will put an undersized turbo on a vehicle so that it flattens out the torque curve, but they're not worried about it carrying all the way to redline. So when you look at a Volkswagen from a factory, factory tune and everything, the torque curve is 200 pound-foot from 1800 RPMs all the way to 5,000 because they're limiting the boost. So they're not trying to make peak power. They're just trying to extend the torque curve so the four-cylinder feels more powerful. You can absolutely do that on a truck that you're going to be crawling or going on the trail. I know for a fact that 6.0 that was in my buddy's race truck. We had a Cummins turbo on it, an HE351 CW. That still made 500 foot-pounds of torque to the ground. Now, that was at 7 pounds of boost and on E85, and the thing had probably crazy back pressure, so that's not the right way to do it. But he's running a 69 mil now with a 1.05 AR, and that thing makes 692 foot-pounds of 14 PSI. There's a lot more plumbing involved with the turbo, but that thing is a joke when you roll in the throttle and you just shift gears and you don't spin RPM. He runs 3,500 RPMs all day long, and it makes 400 foot-pounds to the tire. Yeah. 400 horsepower.
I guess it all depends on what you want to do and like how you want to do it. Like you can make, I don't know, like I'd
love to have a twin turbo.
I think that'd be cool. I'm just so impressed with, and that the motor that's in the K10, it's not exactly like a stock 5.3. I put the 4.8 pistons in it, and it's a fresh rebuild, and the thing just runs like freaking crazy. But it's one of those things where for the price, like I'd rather just go LS because then you get the whole package. It idles good, it runs good, it always runs the same. You don't kind of mess with the carb.
That depends on your tuning, right? So If you went to a standalone system like a Holly, Dominator, or Terminator, or whatever, I mean, you're talking money here, obviously. If your tuner sucks, it's not going to run right. It will always have problems, and that's where you guys got to pick a book up and learn how to do it. Not everybody's going to have access to a good tuner. I know Mark has had some problems with his. He's been through like every EFI system in the world, and he's got to the Edelbrock now, and it runs good, and the self-tune is actually pretty good. So, if you don't have the skill set, and by the way, Mark is a very accomplished carburetor guy, so he understands how it's supposed to work, and that's the thing. You can have all the right stuff, and it still doesn't work. My LS still goes into limp mode once in a while. I don't know why. I think it's wiring. It might not be. Who knows? And that's a frustration of mine. It's like I've almost taken that damn LS out and put a small black back in it because I'm tired of it having a problem. But I'm not the guy that gets defeated. I will continue to troubleshoot the problem, and I will figure out what it is.
Well, that's the thing. Like I'm pretty fortunate. I got Dr. Turbo Joe, who I've known forever, and I just tell him, hey, this is how it is, and he just makes it happen.
And then not everybody has it. Like I was looking around when I was doing my swap, and I literally ran out of money. And by the way, Robert, the HP tuners thing is not as expensive as everybody makes it out to be. You can buy the HP tuner setup with the credits for your vehicle for like $300. It's not that much money. And if you just need it to run correctly, there's plenty. If you guys are going to do an LS swap and you need to know how to do it, I will talk you through how to make it run properly. I have zero problems with that, because if you're going to have an LS swap, maybe we'll get on here and we can talk about it. If you guys want to know more about how HP tuners works, Mega Squirt's pretty fantastic. Eddie's rocking that. That's also an option. But you got to have the resources to make that work. Dave, you got resources. A lot of people don't. Yeah. And that will make or break an LS swap. If you got no computer, it don't run. It's not. Yeah,
that's what puts me at ease. You know what I mean? Because I can build the engines and do all that shit. But so I just built Joe an engine and some other stuff, and then usually I'll throw him a bone
for sure. But I mean,
I'll throw him a bone when I go, and then if so the cool thing with him is that he's been doing it long enough to where. I'm not digging at you. I'm just saying, like, he has so much experience with it that once he can see my setup, we can pretty much we could drive around for 20, 30 minutes, and then I don't have to worry about nothing. And he does on my tunes. He goes a little bit safer. Obviously, it's hotter than hell out here. So, he shoots for about 12 and a half. Even when he dyno tuned my Camaros and stuff like that, try to be in the safer zone, and like we'd always drive around with the wideband just to make sure everything was jiving right. But yeah, it's cool to have that, and I don't really have to worry about it. And like if I didn't have him, then I would have bought the HP tuners and I would have like fiddled with it myself, and I would have had to done that. But if I don't, then I just take it to him and bang. And the cool thing about that too is like. Even the troubleshooting stuff, when I first put the engine together, I had the PCV system was wrong, so I was pulling. I did
that too.
Yeah, I was pulling from the crankcase. Yeah, so I was in a different table and it wasn't idling right. You know what I mean? And so he's like, "Hey, you got a problem. It's not idling right." So then, I was able to fix it and go back, and then he just hooked it up. So even I don't know, all that stuff makes it easier if you do have the hookups. I guess I would say so.
Yeah, so I was the guy that ended up having to learn on his own, and I'm relatively decent with a carburetor. I'm not like a super whiz, but I know my way around enough, and I got scientific with it, and started drilling out air bleeds and emulsion, or not changing emulsion tubes, but started drilling out high and low speed air bleeds and power valve channel restrictors and stuff like that. Try to make the Holly run as best it can. Coincidentally, my Holly on my Blazer would absolutely surprise you, Dave. You would probably not believe that it was fuel injected if you rode in it, because it starts literally at like 2 revolutions and the thing lights right now. So for me, that truck can sit for 6 months and I can turn the fuel pump on and then hit the button and it lights right now. And if it doesn't, I go in and put a rebuild kit for $25 and boom, it'll continue to run. There's a reason why off-road race trucks ran carburetors as long as they did. Now, none of them coincidentally are running carburetors now. They're all almost running Life Racing ECUs, HP, Holley HP, EFI or Dominator of some kind, or maybe it's Terminator. It depends on what their motor is.
Yeah.
Sniper.
Oh, there's nothing wrong with Hollies. I mean, if you can tune the
Q-Jet
Holly
too.
right, if you can tune the Holly right,
yeah.
you're
Well,
in
you
good
just
shape.
need to know basics. But so I want to answer a couple of these questions. So, steer clear FI Tech, I agree. And also too, Ulig was saying, I agree, it's a legit. Depends on your budget and your situation.
Motec.
Motec, dude,
Guys,
that's serious money.
Guys, do the shit yourself. Do not take it to these guys. Do not have them do stuff. I've seen, I don't want to talk bad about anybody, but like all these shops, maybe the guy that's doing it knows what he's doing, but they're rushed. They don't give a shit about your stuff. They're charge you way too much money, and you're just not getting a good product. I'm telling you guys. Like if you're swapping if you want to LS swap something and you don't know about the PCM, get with me. I'll give you all the connections to my guy. You could tell him what you need and mail it to him, and he'll tune you up. I mean, do it yourself. Do not spend all that money having somebody else do it. Like you will regret it because you'll keep having to take it back there 15 times. And don't ask me how I know.
Yeah, and there's so just also know I'm going to answer two things. So you have Holley Sniper is $1,000. It's a good common way to do things on a small block. They got different versions of multiple horsepower ratings. Most of that's just amount of injector. Sorry, got the damn hiccups. One of the things that Robert's talking about is one of the things that keeps me in the stock EFI camp is the fact that there's also a trans controller for 60 or 80. Not the case anymore. The Terminator X Max can control both. Megasquirt can do both. I mean, there's plenty of options out there for you guys to do that. The nice thing about the Holley stuff is the support. Edelbrock's the same way. You can get Edelbrock that I believe you can get one that controls a 4L80 or a 4L60. So you guys have a lot more options now that are less than $1,500.
Yeah. Yeah, the whole argument too. They're talking about like carbureting an LS.
I would not.
It's like, dude, you're going back 40 years. You know what I mean? Like, what did they say?
I don't see a reason to do it. There's really no excuse. I was reading
a thread one time, and somebody was making the argument that GM has more money in research and development in their LSEFI than like Holley's probably ever made. the whole company. You know what I mean? It's like that is what they do. Like they spend the money to make those engines run good. And basically, if you just get it in there and you find somebody who is a good tuner and just tunes it one time, you will never have to worry about it again unless you change a cam or do something.
So
seriously,
let me point something out. If you have ever been in a computer, one of these fuel injection computers, the stock ones, the tables that we are allowed to see, you will understand the multitude of engineers that it would have taken to get to the point that they are at. There is almost no injection system that comes from an OEM vehicle, and I'm talking about Ferrari, Lamborghini, Audi, all of these companies. There is almost no other EFI system that comes from the factory that has as much vastness as far as the capabilities and the conditions that it can run in as a GM ECU. There are some of them that run on widebands because, like, a German cars generally will run on a wideband sensor or a pair of them. That's about fueling, but that doesn't mean that the computer is has as much complexity and can compensate and correct for as many conditions. So, like the 4th gen stuff, Gen 4 LS stuff has a 5-axis table that it references and it builds because like a speed density by itself can't deal with all of the conditions that have been presented to it. There's always going to be some hole somewhere. A mass airflow sensor system does not always deal well with all of the conditions that it's presented. GM is the only OEM that I know of in the big three that runs a blended system. And when they do that, it gives them the capability to use predicted airflow for calculating fuel, and it also allows them to measure it, and it takes the two, and it takes an average between the two of those, and then you get whatever the result happens to be. There's multiple adder tables for timing based on fuel, like ethanol content, air intake temperature, ambient air temperature, intake air temperature. So one of the things is there's a table in the Gen 4 and evaporation, and this is actually in the Gen 3 too. You have an evaporation factor, so that it's compensating for the droplet as it hits the port wall, and then also too the puddling in the bottom of the intake manifold, which happens, or in the port. When you're at low speeds, the fuel's not atomizing as quickly, so it tends to pool at the bottom of that. It's got to calculate for that, because when you get on the throttle, all that fuel basically starts to atomize off the port floor and goes into the intake port, and that's part of that calculation. You don't have a rich condition all of a sudden. And there's about 50 other tables and things that ECU will do to try to make sure that thing runs exactly the same no matter what the conditions are. It can be minus 40, because it literally goes that cold, and goes all the way from minus 40 to 150 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's crazy. You got to think of how these guys started building this stuff, and they've got some crazy condition room where they can turn the temperature way down or way up. They could freeze the car, and the car has to start every single time. And it's got to be.
The Zoom app probably knows, but I think they started working on the LS thing probably in the early 90s, mid 90s, and then they didn't even put it in the vet until 97, and then it didn't get into the Camaros until 98. So
I mean, if you look at it, you can't really compare an LS to a small block, because the LS is like an optimized small block race motor. It's 6-bolt mains, 18-degree heads, crazy flow out of the box. It's got an intake manifold that's basically, Dave could. It's basically
just a vape juice.
Swahili. You may as well be speaking Swahili now. Basically, what I mean, James, is they literally have a team of guys or multiple teams of people that are in charge of drivability and reliability. And, think about this. You went to the store and you bought a $50,000 or $60,000 truck, right? If you're spending that kind of money, there's no reason, if you live in Alaska or if you live in the Sahara Desert, the truck's sold in both places, well, why wouldn't it work? It has to work in its stock form everywhere, every day, for at least the length of that warranty, right? Which they usually work for way longer than that. Our trucks are a very, very good example of the fact that there might be some shortcomings from these trucks when you're using them when they're not in their stock form in the stock, relatively standard environment. But for example, Ethel, even though it had been hampered with a 6.2 its entire life, bless her heart, she has about 400,000 miles on her. And I put 70,000 miles on her last year. And I have a lot of questionable parts in that truck, but it still goes down the road, turns and brakes, and does all the things it's supposed to do. That's kind of hard to think of. If you look at a new car with all the electronics in it, there's a lot of stuff to think about. So, there's people that are making more money, that are smarter than us, that are thinking about, well, how do I make this thing more reliable and work better in every single possible condition you could possibly imagine?
Bro, it's crazy.
It's crazy.
So when I was at Chevy, the new trucks, my 16 Burb out there, the radio and it's almost like the whole truck is connected. They were having an issue with the truck. I don't know if it was. I don't know exactly what was going on, but it wouldn't run. There was something going on with it, and it traced back to the radio. It was causing the whole problem. So it's
there's some
crazy
CAN bus
now.
stuff. So CAN bus. So okay, you guys don't know what this is, but think about a normal pickup truck, right? And you have an electrical system. When you turn on a switch, it turns on, right? You turn the lights on. When you turn it off, it turns off. There's no computer required to tell it to do something. When you look at anything that is probably newer than, because there's technically CAN bus has been around for a long time, but you didn't see CAN communications until like the mid 90s, and where it started getting standardized, OBD1 and then OBD2. So that really changed the world as far as that concerned, because GM's always had like a serial communications thing up and from like the late 80s, I would think. It's probably earlier than that, but I don't know the specifics behind it. But basically what it is it's a network, like a computer network, that all the modules sit on, right? So that ECM or the BCM is probably more likely to be doing this job. You have your dash, it's getting variables from sensors in the engine from the ECU, and the ECU is saying, this is the RPM, this is the intake air temperature, this is the ambient temperature, this is the AC pressure, this is the vehicle speed at this point, and the BCM is going, hey, oh, we're moving, we should lock the doors and close the vents. And there's all these conditions that it has to deal with, right? So somebody at some point in the time of that vehicle's design had to say, okay, when we're going down the road and you pass 7 miles an hour, lock the doors, roll the windows up at 60, and do all these other crazy things that are conditions that need to be met. And it's basically a logic table. And when that happens, like your truck shifts when it's supposed to, so on and so forth. As these things got more what do you want to call it, more complex, that's when you started to see stuff like the Megasquirt come out, because Megasquirt, you have I/O into that computer, right? That's input and output, and you can tell it to do intercooler pumps, boost pressure by electronic solenoid, right? You could run CO2 controlled boost pressure, so you pressurize the dome so that the wastegate opens later or sooner or whatever you're trying to do. You can do 2 steps, all this other stuff, right? So those are functions of the computer, but it also allows you to talk to CAN bus, which means that, like for example, this what do you want to call it? Wait for the serial mode master not to wake up the other module. Yeah, right. So if you have something that isn't communicating and then nothing happens when you're expecting it to, you have this other shit show potentially.
Yeah.
It sounds
it's amazing
complicated.
The power of the BCM. Like that BCM controls all kinds.
So the reason why it's there, James, is there is a limit to the number of input and output streams that you can build into a computer. This is a network, so there are critical and non-critical functions. Like when you turn on the AC, does the compressor come on right away? No, because it's waiting in line until the alternator is done doing what it's doing and the alternator's request is finished. There is, sorry, man. Rob is like, Steve's going
Zoomad, though, like he would be a good one to, we ought to bring him on the show, because I know he knows, he has all kinds of
he could probably explain this better, but basically the short version of this that I didn't start with was, you can't possibly, by yourself, integrate all of the functions that you could think of on a normal vehicle, a BCM, TCM, ECM. There's all this stuff that it's doing, and it's trying to. That's what makes such a new car so easy to drive, is because it's always looking at everything that's happening and compensating and making adjustments for it. You know, when you start to tip into the throttle, it's like, oh wait, we're gonna downshift. We need more torque. You're gonna need more torque. So that means the engine has X amount of torque available, and it says here's more. Okay, we got some more torque. Well, we need downshift, but the AC's on. Oh crap! So you're trying to do all this stuff, right? Standalone ECMs don't know how to do all that up until recently, like the Terminator stuff, the Dominator, all the Holley EFI stuff, and the Megasquirts, and the, I don't know if FI Tech does it.
Remember the old Megasquirts that like you had a board and you had to solder all those shit on it?
They're still like that, but you might joke about it, but they actually are very, very powerful ECMs. And like a Megasquirt 1 will still control an LS and do boost and everything. So you might joke about it, but it is still a valid and viable way to do it. So the thing is it sounds crazy, right? It sounds like it's way too complicated, too much. There's more things to break. I call bullshit on that, because the space shuttle goes out to the middle of space. And you know how complex that thing is? Okay, and my thought on that is if they can make that damn space shuttle work, there's enough people out there. If you surround yourself with individuals that know how to help you do this stuff and you have a reasonable goal, you should be able to make that stuff work and be reliable, because there's millions of vehicles that are doing the same thing, driving down the road, going off-road. that are far more complex than an off-road truck.
Well, yeah,
Don't be afraid of the
I think that's my argument about an LS.
Oh, I totally agree
So
with you. I mean,
just
that's why I have one. I don't
stock
that
intake,
stuff.
stock computer, just everything stock. I mean, all you do, you put it in there, you find a way to get fuel to it, you figure out how to get power to it, you get it tuned,
Right.
Bam.
So James
it's
is asking
just
about power,
that good.
relax, AM/FM radio, even rudimentary EFI. But why is all the threat of this necessary? Maybe it's not, but the reality of it is if you can have it, why wouldn't you? Especially when you talk about making the KISS roll. I'm going to tell you something right now. That computer came from the factory designed to do all of the things you're asking it to do. And you can say reliability all day long, but I can promise every one of you guys, if you take and look at the number of all of these vehicles that are on the road, they are the total mileage count is far more reliable than all of the carbureted vehicles that ever ran the face of this planet. They put more.
Well,
100,000 miles is a joke.
Think about all the vehicles that are starting up tomorrow morning on the Earth.
And they don't have a problem.
And think about all the vehicles that started up on Earth 40 years ago. I'm not a big, I'm not like a climate guy, none of that. But I'm just saying, just think about the startup and how much more efficient they are than how they used to be. How you can just hop in, start your car, back out of the driveway. 40 years ago, you had to start it, go back in your house, let it warm up after it died 3 times. And the choke was on, and it burned a frickin' gallon of gas before you even pulled out of the driveway. You know, I mean, it's just stuff like that. It's just progression.
Under warranty or outside of warranty. Here's a perfect example. I bought a $69 computer on eBay, and I stuck it in my truck. Now, the problems that I have are all related to what I did in the conversion. So when you guys look at a bad LS conversion, it's at the fault of somebody that did something wrong with wiring. There's ground loops or something not integrated properly. It's usually an electrical problem, because what else could it be, right? So if you're afraid of it, learn up on your electrical. This is a very important thing. If you guys don't understand the right way to wire in that ECM, like, for example, everything on an LS is ground switched. There's nothing on an LS that's positive switched, as far as I know. Correct me if I'm wrong, Rob. But the thing here is, guys, and don't take this the wrong way, but if you're saying that you want this thing to be more reliable and you want this thing to be simpler, and there's this KISS method and all this other stuff, then why not just do it how GM did it? They spent billions of dollars on how to make this work, right? And if that requires you to learn some more stuff and get out of your comfort zone because you're afraid of the electrical, then that's what needs to be done. Go buy a book on.
So as far as the electrical goes on the LS, it's really not that hard. All the pink wires need to be powered.
Dude, power probes are awesome, by the way. Sorry, I got to jump in there.
So if you're doing your harness, right? So get a harness, right? Even if it's a little bit busted, go to the junkyard and get another harness. When you're running all your wires, like, take all the pins out, figure out how you're going to run it, repin it all, get your little pin out sheet.
Let me show you something.
And then if you have a wire that's cut, just use another wire that's not cut, like out of the other harness, and then you don't have any splices in your harness, and everything's all good.
Here's a tool. This is an extraction tool for MetroPack 280. Okay, this is a relay from this is a micro relay. Look at how small that is, guys. This is a joke, right? Look at how small. This is so small. This is a relay. This is a 30 amp. I don't know whose relay it is, but this is a standard 5-pole relay. The thing about GM and why I'm a fanboy, okay, so I'm going to run this. These two things in my hand right here are part of the reason why these harnesses and stuff that come from the factory last as long as they do and as many miles as they do. You got your wire seals. This is MetroPack, but it's similar. And then you have your connectors. So, like, if you look at this, and I apologize ahead of time if I'm all over the place with this, but the reason why, if you look at the connector, or this is the terminal. So this portion here, the big leads are to hold the wire seal on there. So you put the wire seal on, the wire, and then you crimp this bad boy around here. So now your wire is completely sealed in a cavity from moisture. Okay, that's the number one failure of all of these terminals, is going to be tension, or it's going to be some sort of moisture and corrosion, right? Then you have 3 more little prongs to crimp around the wire itself. And then to top it all off, you see these little tangs at the top? This is what retains this plug or this terminal inside of the plug cavity. If you look inside there, there's a spring. What are you trying to show, Dave? Oh, you got, yeah.
Well, I made a schematic when I did my Blazer.
It's not that complicated.
But if you guys want it, I'll send it to you. This is like a Gen 3, how to wire it up. This is how I did my relays.
You should put that on your Instagram,
It's
dude,
on my build thread
really
on Chevy K5 Blazer, but if any of you guys want it, here, let's see if it'll... So I have my relays down there. I have it fused the way I want it. Everything goes to the fan. I have electric fans. It tells you here... Let me zoom in a little bit.
Yeah, this is good stuff. And you know what, too? You guys don't need to buy another harness. You can use a factory one. You just have to trim it down. That's what I did. I bought an $89 harness on eBay. It was a brand new van harness. And then I cut it down and I removed the pins. Now, I made some mistakes because it was the very first one I ever did. And it happens, right? And I understand those mistakes. But that's why I went on and I bought header pins for the MX 123s that are in the Gen 4s. Dude, I literally have a box of all of my connectors. I have fuses. I've got the connectors all the way up, or excuse me, the terminals all the way up to, go on to Waytech. You can get them from 12 to 14 gauge. You can get 22 to 26 gauge even. There's all these different things. You can do this the correct way. That's the thing. If you deviate from how GM or Delphi or whatever you want to call it designed this to work originally, it's your fault if it doesn't work.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. So if you got your harness and there's a couple of wires that are cut, just go to the junkyard and get another harness out of another GM vehicle.
Right.
And then you have the wires are the same size. They already have the pins on them. Right. All you got to do is just take one of them out and put it where you need it to be, and you're all good.
And Tracy, so Robert, but you got Packard 56 and 59 connectors. Actually, there's a place called EFI Source. I think they had the Packard 55 or 56 connectors. I know I found a place that has pretty much all of them. But the Packard connectors are not that reliable. So, I mean, I guess I shouldn't say that. They're 30 years old, so they've been damn reliable. The way that they connect and the way they crimp is not as superior as like WeatherPack. GM WeatherPack stuff, dude, you'll break the wire trying to pull it out of the cavity. And the Packard stuff, some of the older stuff is not weatherproof. So that's part of why it fails. That's why they put all that black gunk in there. Yeah, I don't know about the blocks, man. And that's a thing too. There's plenty of ways to convert the factory harness to something better. As far as how it terminates on the firewall, lots of options, no excuse. Cut a piece of plate, weld it in there, cut a round hole, and put a 22-pin MetroPack or WeatherPack connector bulkhead setup in there. And the other thing, even at that,
on my K5, I just ran it I just put a grommet and I ran the PCM into the cab, just ran the wires through it.
Well, here's what my buddies does is he goes to the factory connectors on the bulkhead. So you go find a brand new GM truck and you take the firewall connector out and then you template that hole and then you put that hole in your firewall and then boom, now you have a 1999 or 2002 or 2012 or whatever it happens to be firewall connector in your 70-something K5 Blazer. And that's where I look at it. I look at it like this. You don't got to reinvent the wheel. Somebody already invented it for you. You just take that stuff that works that you want and you move forward with that stuff. Somebody made a comment about your problem here, as Tracy was talking about. The biggest problem I have is trusting someone to reprogram the ECM every time I change a cam heads or cam overlap is not oxygen sensor friendly. Okay, perfect example. My truck has long tube headers. I have VVT. I don't have a big cam, but I have tuned trucks that have a big cam. I agree with you. There's a problem trusting people with that stuff.
If,
But
if Tracy, if you want me to hook you up with my guy, like so seriously, so back in, well, I guess it was like '07, right? You know, like he was still tuning cars. He was tuning cars then. He was tuning turbo cars. He was tuning like I think I put a Torque or two in a Camaro with some 5.3 Texas speed heads, and he was tuning those. You know what I mean? So it's like you got to find somebody with experience that has done it, and then you'll be in good shape. You can just tell them what you got, and they'll make it happen. So,
and the other thing too is there is stuff about all of this on the internet, helping you guys figure out if you guys are serious about wanting to do this. Let me know. I will point you in the direction of where I started to find stuff. There is some very rudimentary things about how to adjust the ECM. Like my personal opinion on how you tune this stuff. You know, when you're doing a heads and cam and stuff like that, you're say for example, you're putting in a choppy cam like a hot cam, right? GM hot cam is pretty big. I mean, not big, but it's moderate. What is it?
228, 219, 228,
right. On 111,
525, 525, 112.
Okay, so that's pretty narrow lobe separation for an LS. So an LS, like the range of cams, they're usually like 117 to 122, or the 114s are pretty wide, and they're running like less than 200 degrees of cam timing, unless it's like a Corvette, and it's like 205 to 220 something. So, but if you go over that, then you're outside the range, right? Well, there are things you can do to tell that PCM at an idle. You need more. You tell it, I need more fuel or more air at an idle, and it will still idle in a stable way, and it will still, you put it in gear or drive it around with a manual or whatever, and it doesn't surge or do other weird stuff. If it does, it's because there's portions of that tune that have been missed. To know who is good or bad, you got to kind of like do some research and look at their resume. There are guys out there that I thought were badass, and I went to watch them go through and do their thing, and I was not kidding you. I was floored by the hackery. I'm not a pro.
Well,
I'm not,
somebody asked who I use. I used Dr. Turbo Joe. That's who. If you search Dr. Turbo Joe, you'll see his Facebook, you'll see his Instagram, and he was we started out in an F-Body Camaro club together back in the day. He was on that show Counting Cars. I don't know. He's on a couple seasons. He was like kind of the just the tuner guy. He always wore like a lab coat and stuff like that. But anyways, but he's been doing it so long that I have no, like I said, like he came over to my house. Like actually the PCM that is in the K10 right now, he came over. I said, this is what I got. Bang, bang, bang. He tuned it. And like as soon as I got the truck running, I just beat it off the rev limiter. I didn't even put a tack in it because like I trust his tuning, and I trust the way that I build an engine, that I could just go and do that. And so like I put his tuning up against, and I'm not saying anything about UC, but I'm just saying I'll put his tuning up against anybody else's tuning on the planet, because he's done turbo cars. Like I've seen him spend 30, 40 hours tuning turbo cars. And getting them right, and he has the knowledge.
Bad. Okay, so here's something to consider. If you're going to tune something, you get something tuned. You're talking between $500 and maybe $1,000 on a good, like if you put the truck on a dyno, so on and so forth. That's probably close to where it's going to be. If it goes lean, it can get very expensive. So, did you guys know that a GM PCM always, even in a pickup truck, is always commanding stoic? That means it's always a 14701, no matter if you're half throttle, idle, full throttle, pulling 10,000 pounds, 15,000 pounds, it doesn't matter unless you're past 90% throttle for more than 60 seconds. Then it starts to enrich it, and it does it in a slow way. So that means that every single GM LS started life lean. So you start to add airflow with the camshaft and cylinder heads, it's probably not going to run. Yes, it's going to be lean. Is it going to blow itself up if it's not boosted? Probably not. It might not run that great. Chances are, if you should know friggin' better. If it's under boost, it's different.
Probably not, Ben. I think he just replaces them.
It depends on the boost. So what do you say? Can you?
Well, you
Yes.
never
Oh my
you
gosh,
never
I
want to
hate
run
tuning
lean.
the
That's
deck.
so okay. So I guess we'll break it down to base. So if you're swapping an LS into your stuff, right? If you're just gonna
Yeah.
just go like a regular build, you can use some like old stock O2 sensors. You'll probably be okay.
Right.
If you're doing something to where you're like camming it and stuff, you might want to put like some nice new O2 sensors in it, and you might want to definitely put a wideband in it,
Yeah.
put it on the
Wideband's cheap
dyno,
insurance, $160.
or drive with somebody who knows what they're doing with tuning. Like you don't want to just like if you go to my channel and you watch the video where he tuned the K10, we have a talk in the beginning about how if things mechanically aren't right, then what he does can dramatically affect
Oh, dude, you can
the
blow
engine. Yeah, exactly.
blow it up. Yeah.
So if everything has to be sound for that tune to make the biggest difference, because if your shit ain't right, if your shit ain't built right, if it's just, you know what I mean? It's like he finds that, and when he's talking to me, that most of the stuff that he gets to when they first get it fired up, there's all this troubleshooting that has to go to it before they even get it right, before he can actually like start to do like real hardcore tuning on it. So I don't know, you know what I mean? There's so much to it that like you got to make sure your shit's right, and then you got to find a good tuner. Like you find a tuner that's just gonna frickin' throw some timing at it just to make you happy, like that ain't right. And that's what some of these guys do. Or some of these guys, they'll just take your 4L60 or whatever, and they'll just throw line pressure at it. You don't ever want to throw line pressure at any of these transmissions. You don't want to do it. You want to like maybe you like increase like the shift time or something, but you don't want to be doing that stuff. So like you got to find somebody with the experience that knows what they're doing before you just get somebody who just doesn't know what they're doing. They can make it seem like it runs better, but they're in the long run, you're going to be worse off.
Pull the torque management out of the 4L60, boom, it blows up. Well, why did it blow up? Because there's no torque management left. Like, you need torque management between shifts. You're pulling torque. You want to pull a little bit of timing and stuff like that. Like, one of the things Robert is saying, factory tune leaves enough gas in it to keep it from going lean, and even when some considers it a hot tune, it will still leave it rich. A factory tune, by all definition, is lean. Period. The factory tune, I mean, according to how you make power, it is lean. Period. And it does not enrich under power. That just remember this, guys. They're all 14701 or stoic. So if it's a Corvette or a Camaro or a car or something like that, that's different. But a truck, because of emissions reasons, it's always trying to be right at stoic. That's how it's designed. That's what the O2 sensors are designed to do. They always try to be in that stuff. And, it's okay that it's that way because it's a stock engine and it was designed to operate at there's no enrichment. So, and that's for emissions and all this other crap. So one of the things that also was commented was, if you want to go to the dyno, the only reason to go to the dyno tune is you want a piece of paper showing your max power. No. To go to the dyno is to validate a lot of the settings that you have in there. You cannot do some things on the street, and it takes longer, because I've done this. I've spent 3 days on a truck. I got one with a GM hot cam. It's got a 4L. It's a 700R4. It's got a 5.3 and a GM hot cam and valve springs. He switched it from electronic throttle body to mechanical throttle body, so that made my life harder. And there was a problem electrically I didn't know about. So we started doing all the drivability stuff, and I got it close. And then basically we started getting to the higher load stuff, and I had the wideband in there, and it would go like dead lean and then dead rich and dead lean. And I'm like, this is impossible. Like, how is this even happening? And I'm an IT guy, so I'm pretty analytical. I try to log everything to make sure that I'm not doing something crazy to hurt the engine. And I try and start conservatively. I'll pull a bunch of timing out and then try and get the fueling straight on the speed density and the mass airflow. And I start putting fuel to this thing, and it's doing this popping. It's because one of the spark plug wires started to melt, and it's stupid stuff like grounds and things that aren't correctly connected, or, just crappy harnesses and stuff that cause problems. My truck, for all intents and purposes, the Ethel has a crappy harness because I screwed up some stuff. That causes me problems. Know that when you're at the tuner, if your stuff isn't right, he's going to be very frustrated, and you're going to waste your money because you're paying him to do.
Yeah. If he's not telling you to just take it home and fix it,
Yep.
like, don't trust that tuner.
Time.
You know what I mean? Right. Like, if you throw it on the dyno and he's just trying to get you some max numbers, that doesn't do anything for your drivability, because you have to drive it around all the time. You know, you're spending all your time below $3,000.
Right.
You know what I mean? The dyno, but the dyno does give you it does shorten the time of driving around, and you don't have to like haul ass on the street. But
so like, for example, so there's two things. Bob, you are correct, and a lot of stuff does require some tuning, because when you start to unplug all the emissions and like you change air cleaners and stuff like that, yes, you do usually need to have some kind of bass tune put in it. And I could show you guys how to do the bass stuff without hurting stuff. It's relatively simple to get it running good enough to get it on a trailer and take it to your tuner. Now, Rob is saying some tuners play on the lean side to bring power and economy up. We had an RV tuner doing 8.1s, burned down a couple of 8.1s due to load when you're pulling around a 22,000 pound rig.
Those, nobody should even be like tuning those. Like, seriously. So those workhorses, or any of one of those motors in those vehicles, it's totally different than a street vehicle, because like those motors are under like full load all the time. Every time you're driving it, every time you hit a grade, those headers are glowing friggin' red. Right. You know what I mean? So it's like, you don't want to be like, you don't want any lean condition to happen in that, or it's going to be problems.
It will melt the pistons.
Yeah, like they were having a lot of problems with the coach builders, so they wouldn't allow enough air, so they had to like put air kits on them to like a kind of like a ram air just to blow it. Actually, on the spark plug wires, to keep the spark plug wires from melting. You know what I mean? So it's like,
because it's a big old box. It just traps air inside there. You got a low pressure area. So basically, what we're trying to tell you guys is, like Bob's saying, if you have a stock engine and you don't do anything to it, and you use a factory air cleaner, factory exhaust, factory TCM and PCM, and heck, the steering column even. They are more likely to run correctly out of the box. If you move the mass airflow sensor, or you put a different air cleaner on it, you put some headers, brazers, some brazels. If you do some of these things and you change the way that thing is put together, if you pull the air pump off of it, you take evap stuff off, it's going to get pissed, because it's trying to run. All these monitors are running in the background for emissions reasons. So expect to have to do some kind of tuning, or else it's going to do some weird shit. And that includes putting different gear ratio and tires in there. There's a lot of stuff that affects this, because this system...
Hold it down, Steve. Be right back.
Yeah. So this system was designed to work on a specific truck with a specific gear ratio. And yes, it's sensitive. So the thing about it is, that's when you start to have reliability problems, because you changed a critical variable that affects all of this stuff. So like, here's a perfect example, gear ratio. You have gear ratio, factory truck's going to be 373 on a 28-inch tall tire. You put a 35 on a 456, it's close. It's not exactly the same. Brazzers, we don't know what that is. That's a restaurant, right? So when you start to make those changes, that's a global change as far as the ECM is concerned. So now that gear ratio is off 7 or 8%, which means that your speed is going to be wrong under load potentially. And now you're causing the engine to work a little bit harder, which causes a cascading effect. The key here is to dial it in for what you're going to do. This is why I tell people, when I do my tune stuff, I get in the truck with them and we go drive around how they're going to use it. Whether it's crawling, going fast, going slow. And I'm not saying I've tuned a bunch of stuff. I've only tuned a handful, maybe 6-8 trucks. But what my goal is I want to try and get throttle response to be a little bit better, so we clean up the fueling to where it's closer to where the computer is trying to get it. So it's stoic and it's running properly, and that makes a big difference. I'm not playing with a bunch of timing if I don't have to. My Blazer definitely would be something, or excuse me, my pickup. My pickup at Tune, I spent 2 years with the computer in the truck every single day, driving back and forth just to see what it would do. And that makes a big difference. Like you guys saw the very first Dead Donut video was probably one of the things that I think that was like the second time I drove it down the street. And that thing had no timing in it. The computer was pulling a bunch out of it, and it still was doing third gear burnouts. I can promise you right now, if I did that now, it would probably break the drive shaft out of the truck if I had traction, because it's that much better running. And it gets good mileage. It starts every day. I have a couple problems with the harness, but that doesn't mean the thing isn't efficient. I could pull 10,000 pounds up the hill. It doesn't get hot. I mean, I put 70,000 miles in that truck, and a lot of it was towing. So it's great. Now, one thing that somebody's saying is the Holley Terminator is sounding better all the time, but it's not cheap. Self-learning only means that the computer is able to dial in the fueling to the table that comes with that ECM. So there's like a generic layout of how it needs to be fueled, which is close, but there's a lot of power left on the table. There's a lot of torque.
It doesn't tune itself. It's just the fuel tables. It kind of like dials those in. That's all.
Right. There is so much left as far as torque. And that's the thing, guys, here. Like when we're talking about trucks and crawling and doing high altitude stuff, like Rob has a perfect example. Rob is running at, a mile above sea level, and he's running a 5.3 on a truck that weighs more than a normal Silverado, and he's got the camper on the back. That's not a good scenario. I have a 5.3 on mine, and I understand the problem with not having enough displacement, which is why he's doing an 8.1, because you need the torque. Now, I was like, oh yeah, just go put a turbo on the LS, but I realized that what he's doing with it, he overlands and he goes out, he'll be 300 miles from any service. Well, you don't want to pop an intercooler hose or rip an intercooler hose or have some stupid thing like that go wrong when you're talking about, how much money it is to do a turbo system the right way. Probably going to the big block is not a bad idea for what he's doing, because he's not looking for max power. So those are kind of those little things about the LS. Is like it may, and that's technically an LS big block. So, it's using the same computer. It uses the same coil packs, injectors. There's a bunch of parts, Dave, isn't there? Like, I don't know. Crank sensors are probably, I don't even know. 6,500 pounds loaded. Yeah, see, it's 13,000 feet. So what is it? For every 5,000 feet, you lose 5 psi of intake manifold pressure. So your sea level.
Asking if I tow with my LS stuff. I haven't. I mean, I've towed some stuff with it, but not like crazy. But basically, how I do my builds is when they're done and running. Like even if the K10 still had the axles and stuff in it. I mean, if it had the bed, I would tow stuff with it. I would haul ass up sand dunes. I'd beat off the rev limiter. That's just how I do my builds. Like I could hop in them and drive 200 miles, go wheeling, and come home. That's just how I like them. They're just.
You have a truck to be a truck still.
Yeah.
It's not like Lucy where she's just an off-road beast. So, and then I'm the same way. I mean, Ethel. It did. I knew that was coming. I heard that, Dave, and I was like, man, somebody's going to pick that one up and run with it.
Yeah, that's fine.
But, yeah, I think we beat a dead horse a little bit. There's a lot of really – I think this is a really good – I'm having a good time with this show. I feel like we're not trying to be beating you guys up about stuff, but the reality of it is don't be afraid of it. It is going to work, especially if you ask the right question and do your research. Educate yourself about how to do it properly.
Settle down, Beavis.
Yeah, I just need TV for my bung room. Oh, jeez. So, anyways, yes, absolutely. Research is key. There's a lot of misinformation. You guys can reach out to us. We will give you the right direction to go.
Guys, I'm telling you, if you haven't LS swapped your truck, or you have and you need some information, if you go to 62 to 72 ChevyTrucks.com, they have an actual, in the engine section, they actually have an LS swap section. Every single truck, every year Chevy truck, somebody's done an LS swap on it. Somebody talks about their fuel system. Somebody talks about how they wired it. They talk about all of it. Like, it's all there if you just search and like,
yep.
So, like even I reference it,
LT1 swap is a good one.
Yeah, I
That's
spent.
where I got my
So honestly, I spent 3 months researching before I did my LS swap, and that way when I did it, I would, and I still ran into some problems. You know what I mean? But I did like so much research, and
That's
I
that's
don't
how
I
long
don't
mine took me.
yeah,
to
I don't
do.
mind the questions, but I still get the ones where, hey, can you tell me all the parts you used? Nah, not
Right.
really.
No, no, no,
Nah, I'm
no.
gonna tell
So,
you.
so nothing's free, right, Dave? Nothing's free. So basically, if you're willing to do the research and try and figure some shit out on your own, we'll help you out. But we're not going to hold your damn hand going through the library. You got to be self-sufficient enough to be able to figure it out. If you don't know about electrical theory in any way, what a ground switch is, or what's positive switched, or what's 12, 5 volts, whatever, what's a 5-volt reference, go learn about it. That's the kind of stuff you guys need to do on your own and figure it out. And
Yeah, I have like on
yeah,
my browser, I have a bookmark. It's like LS swap stuff, and
yeah,
it's the engines, transmissions, like adapters, like
yep.
it's like 40 or 50 links or more, and I just save them as I go along. I read something, and I'm like, all right, cool, that'll pertain to me. I'll save it, bang bang, and that's just how I do it. But yeah, I mean, you just research it and you can figure it. It's all on the internet, so.
Yep.
If you're not willing to do the research, and I'm not saying you guys aren't, but I'm just saying if you're not willing to do the research and find it on a forum, like you go on Pirate and find all the information. You go on 67 to 72 Chevy trucks and find all the information. It's like if you don't have the time, like you're not willing to put in the time to do that, then don't even think about doing the swap because you're just going to be lost.
Yeah, and two, on top of that, it's the shortcuts. The biggest thing I think that you could use to shortcut is to buy like a Holley Terminator X or something like that, because you don't have to worry about rewiring anything. It comes with a harness. You just have to hook fuel to it, which pretty much anybody can do. Dude, GM service manuals. I actually went to gmupfitters.com and I used that to pin out my harness, because there was a little bit of a gap at the time when I did mine, because I put the Gen 4 in mine in 3 years ago now, 2 years ago, and at the time it was still kind of a new thing. There wasn't everybody. There was only one thread on LS1 Tech about doing a manual transmission behind a VVT motor, and I was like, probably, I don't know how many people had done it at the time, but based on those guys, I was probably one of the first ones to do an NV4500 with a VVT motor and have it work properly. And it wasn't a bunch of rocket surgery or any of that crap. That was just kind of figuring it out on my own.
Yeah,
But,
hey, winging it with Tracy, or wing it Tracy. He's bringing up a good point. So, if you're just doing the engine and you want to use like an old school transmission, 400, 350, 465, what you're doing, you can just get the engine and trans, or if you get the TAC module or whatever. But if you're gonna do the trans and the engine and that stuff, you probably just want to get the whole package, from LKQ, or get a truck that has that and take it out, because it's going to be so much easier in the long run than piecing all that stuff together.
right. Well, you could actually, if you did it correctly, you could take all of that stuff out as a unit and put it in your truck. One of the guys that we're on the forums with,
Later, you look.
damn it, what the hell's his name? Later, Brud. Rob knows him. He's friends with, gosh dang it. He's got the K10. It's blue and black. Oh my God, I can't remember. I feel so
working
terrible.
on it.
I feel so terrible. I can't remember his name. But he does the 8-1 swaps and stuff. Rob, put his name in there. It's going to be 15 seconds late, probably. But he's really good at making a factory-looking truck. I don't know, man. Maybe I'm too much of a GM fanboy, but I respect the fact that these guys went to all the efforts to make this stuff work. Larry, yes, absolutely. He makes the trucks look stock. And when I saw
Dirty
that,
Larry.
yeah, Larry, yeah, right.
He was a workhorse guy too, wasn't he? I'm pretty sure he was. I think
he was. Well, so there's
So I use those 8-1s.
And they're great motors. I mean, I look at the big block and I look at my scenario with Ethel. If I didn't drive it back and forth every day and I was only towing with it, it would have an 8-1 in it. Easy. Because the LS is great, but it doesn't make any torque below 2,500 RPMs. It makes good enough torque to do what it's supposed to do. But when you're asking it, hey man, I need you to yank this, 8,000-9,000 pound trailer up this hill, and I need you to do it In overdrive, it's like, what? It ain't happening. And then, yeah, so he's an OG Warcars guy. That's what he's saying. He's the majority of his LS swap. But and that's the thing, too. My grandpa worked for General Motors, so maybe that's the reason why I am the way I am. He was always about AC Delco, factory GM parts, and his trucks always had no issues. Granted, he didn't drive his trucks that much. The 78 had 77,000 miles on it when he passed, and his 98 had 27,000 miles on it when he passed.
Well, that's the thing. So,
You know.
and I've even like on 67 to 72 trucks, there was an argument about the intake on it's the 800 series, right? Is that the
GMT
90s, the 90s
Oh
trucks?
no, those are GMT 400s.
Oh well, anyways, they were talking about like the air intake system, and the guy's like, "Dude, I built the air intakes, I designed it." He's like, that's one of the problems. Like, so this is what I noticed, like when I had my F body and stuff. It's like all those stupid gimmicky parts. None of that shit seems to really do anything. The only thing that does it is like hard parts, like headers or a cam, or I mean, you could switch the intake up all you want, but it's like it never really actually does anything. You just spin your wheels and waste money.
Right, and the thing too here is like for me, I had to cut the bottom of mine up a little bit, but I mounted it to the fender well because I put it on the wrong side. By the way, Rob's talking about running MEFI. MEFI is marine electronic fuel injection, I think, 4. So MEFI was around before a bunch of these LS swap stuff was available. So it's a little bit harder to tune. You got to have the software and stuff for it, but it's a standalone system because it's built for a marine setup. So I don't know that much about MEFI, so that's about the limit of my knowledge there. But I know that Larry's been using it and it works great. Now with the advent of all these other standalone systems and the tuning availability, you can damn near make a completely stock computer do whatever you want it to do, even with Boost, because there are computers that came with Boost. It's very simple. I actually have a 2002 out here, Tracy, that has a, let's see, you're saying looking at a 2001, 2000 truck, cable, throttle body, make it easier, but brackets, manifolds, whatnot, to put in a 77 truck. Yeah, it probably will be easier if you have a cable truck. Okay, it's interesting.
Yeah, so that's a question for Zoomad. So even on like the trucks, right? So even like the 2000s, let's just say a 2000 LS truck.
Yeah.
The stock intake, even if you switched it to a cold air intake, like I still don't think you're getting any more power or anything. Like the only thing that the stock stuff does, it just has the baffles on it, which makes things quieter. That's it.
So you can change the tube to hear it. But here's the thing. An air cleaner in a stock truck, in a stock airbox, is probably going to keep water and dust out better than any of the aftermarket crap. I actually had a cone air filter on mine, and I switched it to the factory air filter. It doesn't get nearly as dirty. I can drive it through the water, and I don't have to worry about it. It's a panel air filter. It's got a lot of surface area. You could go and buy one tomorrow and swap it out if your K9 gets dirty.
Well, shit, the thing's like this big. You know what I mean?
So
it's
if you want
huge.
higher volume, K47, man, it's got the big, giant round filter. My wife's Big Block has one. There's plenty of mix and match parts you could put in there. There definitely is a bunch of ways to take factory GM parts and integrate it with the newer stuff like Bob's talking about here with the cruise module. There is it's interesting. It's marginal more sound. I'm running an intake tube from a W16 workhorse step van chassis with a cone filter. Yeah, so I mean, you can integrate like a better filter into the housing, and then it will still shroud the thing from water and dust. Better.
But I'm saying, okay, so if you're doing like a custom build and you're just using like me, I use some ABS pipe to a cone filter.
I use exhaust pipe.
But it's like, that's cool. But it's like if you're spending money on a cold air intake to swap it from something stock, I mean, you're just spending your money. I mean, if you want it to look cooler, I guess. But
I love the guys that put the mass airflow sensor right in front of the throttle body, and then they put the filter right in front of that, right behind the radiator. Oh, the sound thing. I flipped the air cleaner lid. I was one of those guys. Boop. You don't want to hear it, man.
Yeah, I did too. We all did that. I think
you want to hear it.
I think you have to do that. Like you have to like be like, all right, I'm gonna take the stock one off. I'm gonna put the one
Rite of
that's
passage.
open
You want
in
to suck
there.
all that hot air, Phil.
Yeah, it sounds
all right there in
cooler.
the-
Yeah.
Put that hot air into that engine from the exhaust right next to it. And it's so funny when you do that and you realize, like, man, it sounds faster, but I don't know if it feels faster. If you have to ask yourself that question.
There's no such thing as ram air, unless you got a turbo or a supercharger.
Ram. Pressurize. I got all my air cleaner lids upside down. Dude, I have a big old tall air filter, like 5-6 inches tall on Lucy. And I'll tell you what, I wished about 9 times when I was mudding with that stupid thing that I had a factory snorkel, because I would go through the mud and it would like, wow, wow. It would like halfway through the mud puddle, it would start bogging out, and you're like, come on, clean out. And then like you would change your oil, and there was all these sparklies and stuff in there. You're like, gosh dang it. Pretty sure that took about 12 years off the life of that engine.
Yeah, that's why engines last longer too, is because of fuel injection. And get all washed out like they used to.
Yeah, definitely. Q just sound better with flip lids. Double stacked air filters with the you guys are watching the what was that, roadkill, where he's got the 2 air cleaners stacked on top of each other. I saw that and I was like, you gotta be kidding.
Well, that's one of the things with carb too. Well, especially like with the quadrojets, but like if you have a bigger cam in there, because you want the secondaries to open just right. Yeah. And it's like a fine line between them just slamming open and bogging down.
Right, you got to adjust
you
the
want them to
tension,
open
man.
fast. You want them to open fast enough to where like, you're not like stuck in like the purgatory between opening, all that stuff,
You see, the thing is it's like misleading when you think about how fast it opens and if it's actually fueling correctly, because when that door swings open, it pulls the rods out of the main jets and enriches the secondaries. Now you're flooding it because you got too much air.
Well, dude, my 84 was like that. So I had that 30-30 cam in it, right? Stock stall, right? But on the street, though, it was cool because, like, even though I had GSCs on it, but I could still break them loose on the street. And so it was, like, perfect. But then I went to the track and just, it was a bog fest. So it's like such a fine line.
Yeah, you got to be able to tune them. And there's a lot of information out there for the Q-Jets. But, man, I'm seeing what time it is, man. You guys...
yeah, we better get going.
Yeah, we definitely have to tie this up. Tunnel around with a salad bowl, secondary valve screw, the adjuster rod. Yeah, right. So there's definitely lots you can do with the stock motor. There's definitely lots you could do with an LS. In our opinion, don't make it more
Hey, this was a super fun show, guys. I appreciate you guys being here. And
I didn't even cuss one time, Dave.
Yeah, so we're trying not to cuss because I want this video to go live on YouTube after it's over.
We want to share this with everybody,
and
guys.
I appreciate you guys. And, I appreciate you guys bringing the information, too, because, I think that's one of the cool things. So if we can all kind of come together and spread some good information to somebody who's maybe looking for this information, that's what it's all about. And then we get to hang out, kick back, and drink some beer at the same time. So it's awesome.
I had a great time, guys. Thanks for joining us. And like we've talked about before, too, maybe one of you guys in the next couple of weeks, we could set up maybe Rob or Bob or somebody to come on and talk to us about some of the finer things about the GM life. And I hear, hey, before we go, Dave, did you hear that Rob got a new Blazer? It's white.
I did, yeah. He said, it looks like an egg. And I'm not sure if it's 4-wheel drive, but it says it's a Blazer, and I think he said he's pretty happy with it. He said he doesn't have any buyer's remorse. He said he went down the driveway and it handled it perfectly.
Oh,
so
man.
it was
I think
good.
I think he's going to go. He's going to start a new Blazer club.
Yeah.
What is it? 20th Gen Blazer Club or something, like 2020 Blazers?
Yeah, 2020 Blazers.
Oh, jeez. I'm waiting for the comment to pop up because I can't imagine what he's gonna say.
He's gonna bash me hard on Instagram. If you guys are following me on Instagram, he freaking bashes me
30
freaking
miles
hard.
Oh gosh. Yeah,
it probably does.
Hey, Drew's over here with the disease. I need to go visit this guy, or he needs to come over here. Anyways, guys, it's been really good. Thanks for joining us. We can't wait to see you next week. And yeah, Bob, it definitely is one of them cross-dressing Blazers. It's not a Blazer; it's an Acadia with two doors.
Egg. It's an egg. All these 4-door SUVs, they look like eggs.
Yeah,
all of them. They're egg cars.
Super popular though. I don't know what the deal is. Anyways, it's trash. Yeah, Big Bear Forest Fest, Drew. Hey, we'll figure something out, guys. I know you guys are asking about this meet. I don't want to meet in the summer, Dave. I'm gonna tell you right now. So
Yeah, no.
we'll definitely we'll figure something out, guys. Maybe for the winter time. And Chevy Cherokee. That's terrible. It's terrible. Anyways, guys, we're gonna get out of here. You guys all have a good night. It's been a pleasure. We'll catch up with you next week.
Guys, take it easy. Talk to you
Thanks.
later.